Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto bankrupts Konoha Chunin exams. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by AVAIN 1991 and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1 Naruto Uzumaki was sleeping in the arms of the third Hokage. The old man was still trying to deal with the knowledge that the fourth had just sacrificed his life to seal away the spirit of the nine-tailed fox demon in his own son. Minato, I hope you knew what you were doing when you made Naruto the jailer of such a thing. He was brought out of his thinking by the sound of knocking at his door as his former student Jiraiya of the Sannin walked in, followed by Kakashi Haddock, Mito Guy, a man with a bowl haircut and green spandex suit with a vest and orange leg warmers, Kurenai Yuhi, the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha with a red shirt and what appear as a white dress-like thing covering her, and his son Asuma Sarutobi with a black shirt and pants as well as a vest like Kakashi and Guy, except his hair looked unkempt and the early stages of a beard on his face. All four were young Jounin ninja, Kakashi being the most renowned as the copy ninja, thanks to the Sharingan kept hidden by his headband and the mask he wore that covered all of his face, but his eyes and weasel-like silver hair. Last to enter the room was Hiashi Hyuga, the leader of the Hyuga clan. He had long black hair, a green kimono that had the Hyuga mark on the back, and his eyes were pale and empty, missing an iris, just like every member of his clan with their Byakugan bloodline. Thank you all for coming. Why are we all here, sensei? Jiraiya asked, his usual happy appearance gone. The Sarutobi elder stood on his feet as he held up the child before them. This is Naruto Uzumaki, the child that the fourth sealed the spirit of Kyuubi, better known as the nine-tailed fox, into. Everyone in the room looked at the child as it turned in its sleep so they could all see the young face, as well as the whisker marks that were on it. Kakashi and Jiraiya recognized the hair and face and almost started to cry when the baby opened his eyes and looked at them with familiar blue eyes. He couldn't have, Kakashi started to say before Jiraiya interrupted him. That's my godson, alright. Everyone turned to look at him in shock as the man now openly wept. The tears started to mix with the red face paint he had on as they dripped down his face onto his red vest and silver clothing, his long spiky hair the same color. Minato, why? He thought as he looked at the small child. Hokage-sama, I'm afraid I don't understand. I said the third side as he said this child is the son Minato Namikaze aka the Yellow Flash aka the fourth Hokage and his secret wife Kushina Uzumaki, a survivor of the Whirlpool Massacre. Hiashi, Asuma, Guy and Kurenai all turned bug-eyed at the statement as they all looked at the young man with new and greater respect. Minato wanted his son to be thought of as a hero, but I have a feeling that no one in this village will think that way if they knew about the fox, so I've decided to trust only those of you in this room right now. Everyone in the office nodded their head once, letting him know they understood. As of tomorrow morning I will resume my position as Hokage, however I have yet to decide on what to do with Naruto. I'll take him. Everyone turned to Kurenai in surprise. My apartment isn't very large, but he'll be comfortable there until he gets bigger. I'll help you. We can use my family's estate to give him enough room to grow in. Kakashi said, making the Genjutsu mistress look at him with gratitude. Are the two of you sure neither one of you are over the age of 20 yet? The old man asked, secretly happy that even one of the ninja he had called was willing to help the small child. Minato-sensei was like a father to me, and I remember what it's like to lose your family at a young age. I wouldn't dream of putting that on anyone. Kakashi said, making everyone, even Hiashi Hyuga, smile at the young man. I also have lost family, though I wasn't as young as either Naruto or Kakashi. I wouldn't wish such a thing on anyone. Kurenai said as the Hokage nodded. Very well. I'll leave Naruto's care to the two of you, and I hope everyone in this room will help watch over him as he grows. Hi Hokage. Jiraiya, Guy, Asuma and Hiashi yelled, conviction completely covering their voices. The elder Sarutobi smiled at the sight. This was just evidence to what he had always said about Konoha truly being a place where the ninja of the village looked after each other. Alright, as of right now Naruto Uzumaki no longer exists. He is now Naruto Haddock Yuhi, adopted son of Kakashi Haddock and Kurenai Yuhi. Dismissed. Kurenai walked forward and took the baby from the Hokage's arms and listened to him coo as he shifted and snuggled into Kurenai's body and fell back asleep. I'll lead you to the place. I'll have Niji's old bed sent to you. I'm sure Hisashi won't mind helping out a starting family. Hiashi said as he smiled at the new parents. Thank you. Kurenai said. Kakashi nodded his thanks as the two of them were leaving the office. The sliver-haired Sannin said. When the time comes I'd like to help train him. Mainly signing the Toad contract, summoning, and the Rasengan. Kakashi nodded. I can handle the Rasengan when he's ready, but I'll leave the summoning jutsu to you. Jiraiya smiled as he said, alright, I'll see you two in about 13 years. Kurenai and Kakashi nodded as they left the Hokage's office. Do you think they can handle parenthood? I have complete faith in the two of them. Kurenai will make a great mother, and who better to watch over Minato's son than his own student. Jiraiya nodded his head. He would have taken Naruto in himself, except that the road was no place to raise a child, and with his constant traveling, as well as keeping up his spy network. Not to mention what it would have done to his research time. The streets of Konoha were empty as the sun's rays starting to illuminate the grounds. The only ones seen were two Jounin ninja as they headed towards their new home. I don't think it's safe to leave Naruto looking like his biological father, at least not completely. At the very least we should change his hair color. Kakashi was in deep thought as he said, that plus the Haddock family tradition should help keep him hidden. Haddock family tradition. From a young age all of us wear these masks. My great-grandfather started it as a way to both keep his identity hidden from the world and to make himself appear mysterious. From the time my mother and father took me out into public I had one of these masks on over the years. Kurenai was surprised to hear that. So that's why he's always wearing that mask. She thought as they continued to walk. He should have your hair color. Black hair is more common than silver. Kakashi said as he looked at the baby in her arms. A little piece of the both of us, huh? Kurenai asked in a teasing voice. Kakashi gave a quiet laugh as the two of them continued walking. Kakashi was surprised when he heard his laugh. He had been sure it would have been years before he heard it again. The two of them walked until they came to a house. It wasn't as large a house as you'd expect from say the Hyugas or the Uchihas, but it was big enough for a family of 6 with a large front and backyard. Kakashi hadn't laid eyes on it since his father had committed suicide after he had broken down from his years as the captain of an Anbu team. The White Fang of Konoha was placed on the memorial stone, though few knew the real reason behind his death. I hope this isn't the way you live. Kakashi smiled as he said, I haven't been to this house since my father died all those years ago when I was in the academy. Kurenai looked like she regretted her words after she heard that. I'm sorry. You couldn't have known. Kakashi said as he pulled out a key and unlocked the door. He opened it. Looks like it all mainly exterior damage. He said as he looked at the home of his childhood. That's good, it'll save us some money on fixing the place up. The Kunoichi said as she looked at the white walls of the house. The two were barely into the hallway when there was a knock at the door. That was fast. Kakashi thought as he opened the door for an identical match of Hiashi Hyuga if it wasn't for the headband across his forehead. Hello Hisashi, thank you for coming by so soon. My pleasure Kakashi, I've brought a few things with me along with the crib that Niji used to use. The man said as he lifted a backpack, some dippers, clothing, and whatnot you might need until you can stop by a store to collect the rest of the materials. Thank you very much. Kurenai said as she walked over to them. He looks very peaceful. May I? You'd be lucky if you did. Kurenai hasn't let anyone touch him since we've left the Hokage's office. Kakashi said, teasing her a little bit. The grown woman just scowled at him as she stuck her tongue out at him and left the new father with the Hyuga member. See what I mean? We've barely had him for half a day and already she's overprotective. Hisashi just laughed as the two men walked down the hallway and into the room across from the master bedroom. This used to be my room, I think it's the best place for him. Kakashi said as he opened the door and started to clean up the room a little for his new son. While he did this, Hisashi set up the crib and set the backpack of supplies on the floor next to it. One tip. Take turns taking care of him at night, it helps with the sleep depravity. Hisashi teased as he left the homestead, laughing a little. I don't think I like that little jab you made towards me. Kurenai said once she walked into the nursery. Well, it's true, ever since we got him I've yet to be able to hold my son because his mother doesn't seem to want to let him go. I was taking him into the other room to put up the genjutsu around his hair. The young woman defended herself, making Naruto turn in her arms as both parents flinched at the sight, afraid that they had woken him up. After he continued to sleep for a few seconds, both of them released a breath they hadn't realized they were holding. How about we keep the fights too after we close the door? Agreed. Kurenai said in a softer tone as she laid their son in the crib. Kakashi was surprised how much the darker shade of hair seemed to affect his appearance, so much so that he lifted his headband to look at the genjutsu with his Sharingan eye. Very well placed, Kurenai. Thank you. She said as he lowered his headband, covering his eye again. Once she got over the shock of seeing the Uchiha bloodline, she asked him. Where did you get that? My teammate Obito Uchiha gave it to me when he died. I had lost my left eye, and while he lied dying under a rock pile, he had our other teammate Rin give me his eye to replace mine. That was the same day that I learned that one that breaks the rules is trash, but one that would abandon a comrade is worse than trash. It's a good lesion to teach Naruto once he's older. I planned it to be lesson number 1. Kakashi said as he opened the bag and pulled out a baby blanket and placed it on their new son to keep him warm. Let's get some shut-eye, tonight's battle took a lot out of everyone. Kurenai suggested as they both walked out of the room. Kakashi pulled out one of his Ichich books. He better not find one of those till he's 19. Kurenai warned. 13. 18. 15. 18. She said a second time, making Kakashi turn to see her red eyes glaring at him. He just sighed as he said, alright, 16. Thank you, wait a minute. Too late, 16 it is. Kakashi said with a small laugh as Kurenai threw kunai at his head, which he ducked without looking up from his book. Alright. 17. He said in a bored voice. Thought she knew that was just his normal tone. Fine. But if I find out that you've let him read any of that beforehand, I'll burn every one of them. Kakashi's visible eye widened as he looked at her. You wouldn't? Try me. Kakashi knew from the tone in her voice that she was absolutely 100% serious, so he sighed again, this time in defeat, as he said, alright, I'll make sure to keep them hidden from him. Thank you. You're welcome. He said in a defeated tone as he moved to lie down on the couch. Take the master bedroom, I'm sleep here. This is your. For the duration of Naruto's life it's our house, and since neither one of us knows each other that well, I'll sleep here and you can have the room. Alright if you're positive. Kakashi nodded as he went back to his book. Kurenai woke up a few hours later to the sound of Naruto crying as she walked to his nursery. She caught the start of a voice singing to her new son. Love is not proud. Love does not boast. Love after all matters the most. Love does not run. Love does not hide. Love does not keep locked inside. Love is a river that flows through, and love never fails you. Love will sustain. Love will provide. Love will not cease at the end of time. And love will protect. Love always hopes. And love still believes when you don't. Love is the arms that are holding you. Love never fails you. When my heart won't make a sound. When it can't turn back around. When the sky is falling down. Nothing is greater than this, greater than this. Cause love is right here. Love is alive. Love is the way the truth's alive. Love is the river that flows through. Love is the arms that are holding you. And love is the place you will fly to. Love never fails you. Kurenai looked in to see Kakashi cradling Naruto as he sang to him. She had never heard something so beautiful. Heck, she was just surprised to hear that Kakashi knew how to sing. Naruto just started to coo as Kakashi laid him down in his crib, again covering him with a blue baby blanket. Good night my son, sleep tight. Kakashi said as he leaned forward and kissed the baby's forehead through his mask. Naruto made a few more sounds as he yawned, then closed his eyes. You have a beautiful voice. Thank you. What song was that? I don't know. I heard Minato-sensei sometimes sing it to Naruto when he was still inside the womb. I just thought he'd want to hear something familiar. Kurenai felt a part of her heart throb at the words. That's very generous of you, Kakashi. I remembered that the little things that my parents used to do are the things that stuck with me the most when I thought about them. Kurenai walked over and looked down at the newly dark-haired boy. He sleeps so peacefully it's almost like to him nothing at all has changed in his life. He knows that there has been a change. He just doesn't realize it yet. Kakashi said in a solemn voice as the shinobi and Kunoichi left the room to allow the young one to sleep in peace. Chapter 2. Over 4 months Kurenai and Kakashi both agreed that the best way to train a ninja to go days without sleep was to have them take care of a baby. However, Hisashi's tip turned out to be a lifesaver for the both of them. I don't think I'd be able to get out of bed if I was on my own. Kurenai said as she drank a cup of coffee while Kakashi cooked breakfast. Who knew such a little thing could make so much noise? Kakashi said as he set a plate of pancakes on the table in front of Kurenai. Thanks. You're welcome. After she had taken a couple of bites, they both heard a small cry come from out of the nursery. I got him. Kurenai said as she wiped off her mouth and walked out of the room. As she left, Kakashi started to heat up a bottle and mashed up some fruit into a mush for their son. As Kurenai walked into the room, Kakashi turned to see a dark-haired baby in a dark blue onesie and a small black mask covering his mouth as he rubbed his eyes. Good morning, Naruto. Kakashi said as he kissed the boy on the forehead and set down the bottle, as well as the bowl of mush next to Kurenai's plate. Naruto made some gurgling noise as he started to wake up. Kakashi, can you hand me one of his bibs? Kakashi walked over to one of the kitchen drawers and pulled out a small piece of cloth that he handed Kurenai. Here you go. Thank you. Kakashi allowed his fingers to run across the back of her hand as he handed her the fabric. Kurenai smiled at him as he went back to the stove to finish making his breakfast. Over the 4 months since they had both adopted Naruto, a lot had happened. When the two of them had walked around the village with Naruto for the first time, almost every civilian woman in Kunoichi stopped to gush over the little bundle in Kurenai's arms, and every civilian man and shinobi would pat Kakashi on the back most of the time, saying, "Congratulations on your brand new son." It wasn't until they sat down with Asuma that the two realized that a certain green beast had decided to say that instead of adopting Naruto, the two of them had kept Kurenai's pregnancy hidden from everyone in the village, and since she is the Genjutsu mistress, everyone believed that. Kakashi and Kurenai sighed when they heard that, but they both agreed that since they were already planning on keeping him hidden anyway, it just made the Haddock tradition easier to pull off. Kakashi produced the same light material mask that he had himself when he was a baby. It was thin and breathable. It also had a Genjutsu on it that allowed food and drink to pass through the mask, so the same that was on Kakashi's current mask, so he didn't have to remove it to eat. As time passed, Kakashi and Kurenai got more and more used to the idea of being parents. They were also able to always find a babysitter in Asuma, Guy, if they were desperate, or Hyanite Hyuga, Haishi's wife, who had no problems looking over Naruto as well as her own child Hinata. It was during their first night away from Naruto when they were out for a night on the town. Kakashi decided to treat her out to one of the more fancy restaurants in Konoha. The two spent the entire night just talking with each other, getting to better know the other. Kurenai almost cried when she heard the whole story behind his Sharingan eye. Kakashi listened to her as she talked about her past and her dreams of changing a lot of minds about Kunoichis, that they weren't women of loose moral, but warriors that protected their home. Kakashi was surprised to hear himself laughing and enjoying his time with the red-eyed beauty. She in turn felt the same way as they walked home, both unaware that they were now holding hands as they were walking down the street until they arrived home to see Hyanite, giving them a knowing look as she left with little Hinata asleep in her arms. Both Jounin blushed. Although Kakashi's mask kept it hidden. Over time the two of them went on a few other dinner dates, getting to not only better know each other, but also as a way to try and help make Naruto's life easier in the long run. One night in particular when Kurenai came home sore after a long day of training as she walked through the doors holding the back of her neck. Rough day. That's putting it mildly. Kakashi gave a small laugh as she sat down next to him. "Here, let me help," he said as he turned and made her turn her back to him. "What are you mmm?" She gave a comforted sigh as Kakashi started to work the kinks in her shouldn't neck as he worked deeper into her sore muscles. Kurenai moaned a little as she leaned forward. "Where did you get these magical fingers?" Kurenai asked in a breathless tone. "I was born with them," Kakashi said as he started to work on her lower back. "Thank you for this. No one has ever done anything like this for me in the past." "You're welcome, Kurenai," Kakashi said as he continued working the muscles in her back and shoulders until his could no longer feel any kinks. "Now your feet," he said. "Are you sure? Trust me, it'll help." "Okay," she said as she made herself comfortable on the couch and rested her feet next to him. As he started to work on her feet, Kurenai moaned at his touch. "God, I did needed this," she shouted in her mind. Kakashi smiled as he worked. It wasn't often that he was able to make a woman sound like this, but he wasn't thinking of this as something from Icha Paradise. He saw it as a way to help a fellow ninja. After he finished working on her feet, Kurenai looked at him with a faraway look. "You would make millions if you did that professionally. Maybe when I retire. I don't think I could handle the quiet life unless I had to." "It's a good retirement plan. You can teach Naruto so he can help the Kunoichi that winds up stealing his heart." Kurenai paused after she said that. Kakashi saw her eyes change, lost the blissful look as he saw a small bit of sorrow fill them. "Kurenai, I shouldn't have said that," she whispered. Kakashi almost missed it. "Why? It's okay to dream about our son having a happy life. Naruto may be the only child I ever hold in my lifetime." One of his eyebrows rose up at the statement. "What makes you so sure of that?" Kurenai snorted as she looked Kakashi in the eye. "Look at me, I'm not exactly what people call a catch." Kakashi was surprised at the statement. "If you think that, then you're one of the dumbest women I've ever met," Kakashi said, making Kurenai jump in surprise at the slightly harsh tone of his voice. "Kurenai, you're one of the most beautiful women in the village. Why you think of yourself in such a way is beyond me." "Kakashi, don't you dare start to contradict that statement right now. Kuro-chan, any shinobi would be lucky to have caught your eye. You have a great personality, one that could be compared to the sun, warm and lively. Your hair is just like silk, soft yet strong. Sure, your eyes may cause a few people to flinch. I get the same reaction when they see my Sharingan. Kurenai, you are a beautiful woman with one of the largest hearts I've ever seen. Every day when I see you holding Naruto in your arms, I can't help but think I'm looking at one of the most beautiful painting in the entire world." Kurenai felt tears start to fall from her eyes as he moved to sit in front of her, and he placed his hand on her cheek, watching as she turned into his hand, rubbing her cheek against his hand. "Hashi-kun, Kuro-chan, I don't know what it is about you, but ever since we started to do this together, I can't help but think of you. I can barely breathe right, my heart won't stop pounding in my chest when I see you, and I swear I've laughed and smiled more in these past months than I have my entire life. You did all of that, Kuro-chan. Don't ever think of yourself as anything else but the amazing woman you are." Kurenai slowly reached her hand forward and placed it on his cheek and tucked her fingers into the top of his mask. "There's a second one under it," Kakashi said, making Kurenai give a small snort of laughter before she tucked her fingers into the second mask as well and pulled them down to reveal his face. She smiled when she saw complete trust in Kakashi's eye as she looked at his sculpted face and brought her other hand up and ran the both of them over it. Kakashi closed his eye at the touch, enjoying the feeling of her calloused yet soft hands as they moved along his face. "Hashi-kun, I'm falling for you too," she whispered, making his eye open wide as he looked at her. "Ever since that first night when I heard you sing to Naruto, I can't stop myself from wanting to be around you. My heart flutters every time I hear you laugh and I see you smile. When I watch you with our son, I dream that one day you'll be doing the same for a second child that you and I actually created together. I can't stop thinking about." She never finished the sentence as both Kakashi and Kurenai leaned forward and captured each other's lips. The kiss only lasted 10 seconds, but to them, it felt like a lifetime. "I've wanted to do that for a long time." Kakashi admitted as he leaned forward again to kiss her bright red lips a second time. Kurenai moaned a little as she smiled against his mouth. They kept giving each other little kisses until they heard the sound of Naruto waking up and wanting dinner. Ever since that night the two of them became an official couple, although the only ones who really knew they were a new couple were Asuma, Guy, Hiashi and his family. And the Hokage. Everyone else in the village just thought they were so sweet together, especially when they had little Naruto with them. The little tyke was always happy when they were walking around the village. He'd laugh every once in a while, a sound that melted not only Kurenai's heart but the heart of every woman in the village that heard it. Kakashi smiled when he saw that and would joke that his son would be the new heartthrob of Konoha, and he received a punch to the back of the head whenever Kurenai was there to hear him. "Don't talk about my baby boy like that or I destroy your favorite books before they're a bad influence on him," she always said with a smile while Kakashi felt a shiver run down his spine. "Yes dear," the copy ninja said in a defeated voice. "Now you know how the rest of us feel." Kakashi turned to see Shikaku Nara walk toward the couple. Shikaku was walking with his wife Ishino, and their young son Shikamaru. Shikaku was wearing his trademark vest that stuck out in all directions on the top, gray guards on his shoulders, and purple gloves and pants, as well as ninja sandals. He also seemed to have recently combed out his goatee that ended at a point on his chin. Yoshino was wearing a light green kimono, and her hair was done up in a bun with two ceremonial sticks in her hair, and I didn't want to call them chopsticks. It was rather sneaky of the two of you to keep such happy news from us," Yoshino said to Kurenai as she looked down a smiling Naruto. "I didn't want to be pulled from active duty, though I may think that if we have a second one." Kurenai smiled as she saw the Nara heir sleeping soundly in his mother's arms. "Must you have him wear that mask?" "Afraid so. It is tradition in my family," Kakashi said with an eye smile at the woman. "He's a very lively thing. He'll be a troublesome young man," Shikaku said as he shook his head. "Just because he isn't lazy like you doesn't mean he'll be troublesome," Yoshino said looking at him that he knew all too well. Shikaku sighed as looked over at Kakashi. "See what I mean?" "Not really. Kuro-chan has only given me warnings about Naruto picking up my habit of always being late or my addiction to icha. Shikaku looked up at him and snorted. "Lucky boss." Kakashi looked frightened as he clamped his hand over Shikaku's surprised mouth. "What were you about to say?" Kurenai asked in a sweet tone and a little smile with her eyes closed. Even though she looked harmless and kinda cute, both men felt a shiver run down their spine. And nothing," Shikaku said. "That's what I thought," Kurenai said as Yoshino and her walked ahead of the two of them. Once she was turned away from them, both of them breathed a sigh of relief. Shikaku-san swearing in front of Kurenai when Naruto is around is a worse taboo than calling an Akimichi fat. "Right, I still remember the way Chaozu reacted to that word," Shikaku said, remembering his friend's reaction was considered deadly to the person that attacked. Shikaku shivered, trying to think of what could make that seem worse. "We're actually on our way to meet up with some of the other shinobi parents. Why don't you three join us?" "I think that's a great idea. It'll allow the children to get to know each other better." Kakashi smiled as the two walked up to their families to hear the remnants of the same conversation. "That sounds like a great idea, allowing all of this generation to meet one another," Kurenai said. "Then we're all agreed. Let's head to that park for the picnic. Don't worry, Inoichi always packs way too much. He's always ready for Chaozu's appetite," Shikaku said as he wrapped his arm around his wife's waist as the four parents walked towards Konoha's Memorial Park. The four walked into a scene that made them all smile. So far all of the clans and their heirs had shown up. Kurenai smiled seeing little Ino trying to play with Hinata, who was being very shy. Choji and his father were sitting close to the food so they could get at it as soon as available, though Choji was going to be getting some of the Akimichi baby food instead of anything he saw in front of him. Hiba was playing with his sister Hana's canine partners, and Shino, wearing a tiny pair of sunglasses, just sat there and watched everything. As Ashi had brought Niji along with them, the 1-year-old just stood near Hinata like a little bodyguard. They also saw a little girl there with two buns in her hair almost like panda ears, but since she was walking next to one of Chira Misusachi, the best weapons mistresses of Konoha, could only mean she was Tenten Misusachi. "Hey everyone, I've brought along the Haddocks," Shikaku called out, making everyone turn to see the most talked about couple in Konoha. Kakashi just smiled as waved at them, while Naruto started to wake up, making Kurenai smile down at her son. Naruto laughed at his mother's smile, making her heart melt at the sweet sound. She sometimes wondered if Naruto laughed just to make her smile more. Tsumin Yuzuka smiled at the sound. "Kiba, come and meet a possible teammate of yours," she said as she lifted her son up out of the reach of Hana's triplet dogs. The other parent smiled as got up with their respective child, as well. Hinata, having spent the most time with Naruto, smiled at her friend. Naruto smiled, as well as his little hand moved up and down in a crazed wave-like motion that made the parent smile at his antics. Ino tried to pull off his mask, only to see a second mask underneath it, making a few of the parents want to face fault. Each of them had been hoping to see little Naruto's face. His father and mother laughed at the looks on all their faces. "It looks there is yet another mysterious Haddock in the world. A loud voice called out, making everyone there flinch at the sound as Mito Guy appeared holding a mini version of himself, eyebrows and all. "Everyone, I'd like you to meet my adopted son Rock Lee." "That poor kid," they all thought. "Kakashi, let it be said here and now, my youthful son will beat yours, my eternal rival. Theirs will be a great rivalry that will outclass even the two of us." Kakashi the entire time was playing with his son when he looked up at Guy and said the words that always drove him nuts. "You say something?" I screamed in dismay. "Darn you Kakashi and your too cool attitude." Everyone there, even the kid, sweat dropped at the man. "Just you wait Kakashi, in no time Lee will be ready for the flames of youth." Kakashi turned Kurenai and Naruto away from the man and called out to the others, "Don't look." Mere seconds later they heard screams of horror before they, the Naras and Aburams, turned to see everyone else on the ground, all of them victims of Guy's sunset genjutsu. Kakashi kneeled down and checked Tsume's vitals. "They're alive." "Well, the adults are alive, I don't know about the kids." A monotone voice answered. "The children are okay, but it looks like they have been scarred for life." "Thanks for the warning Kakashi-san." Shino's mother said in a monotone voice. "It was no problem, I've seen what that genjutsu does to people, I can't break it even with my Sharingan." The adults that were standing shivered at that motion. "They should all be able to awaken in about an hour," Kakashi said as he looked towards Guy. "Who let you adopt that poor child?" "When I saw this little guy I knew he was meant for the flames of youth, and since he's an orphan I adopted him." Kakashi shook his head. "Guy, you are just too much," he said as the other parents started to awaken. Time skip, 4 years. Naruto Haddock woke up as the morning sun's rays hit his face. The 4-year-old stretched out his arms as he woke up and walked out of his room towards the kitchen, still wearing his pajamas. "Morning sun." Kakashi laughed as Naruto sat down at the table. Not long after, Kurenai walked into the kitchen dressed in her nightwear as well. "Morning Kura-chan." Kurenai said as she sat next to her son. Kakashi laughed again. Although Naruto was adopted, he wound up inherited a few things from them, both from Kurenai. Naruto seemed to have picked up her slow waking syndrome, as Kakashi liked to call it, since neither one of them actually woke up until their morning cup of milk coffee. He also seemed to pick up her studious attitude with books from Kakashi. Along with his mask, he picked up the habit of reading while he walked, and every once in a while, he would adopt his father's carefree lazy tone, but also his fierce loyalty towards the ones he cares about. As Kakashi laid down a plate of pancakes in front of his son and wife, along with a glass in front of them, both with an from both of them, as they both took long drafts from their drink of choice. "Much better." "Morning Naruto." "Morning Kashi-kun." "Morning Ka-chan too-san." "What time is Shikamaru expecting you?" Kurenai asked. "Around 9. "Why do you guys need to go to the hospital again Ka-chan?" Kurenai smiled at her son as she fingered the wedding band on her right hand. In the 4 years of Naruto's life, the two had decided to tie the knot with Kurenai's friend Enko as the maid of honor and Asuma as best man. It had been a small event, but it had drawn all the clans there to see. Naruto was their ring bearer while Ino was the flower girl since her family was supplying them all. Naruto had stayed with the Nara clan while they went on their honeymoon. Shikamaru, Choji, and Kiba were the 4 best of friends. They considered Shino as one as well, but it was hard to call him a best friend when he barely talked to them, but every once in a while when he was invited to play with them, he would raise his eyebrow and say yes. Naruto was the one that figured out that meant he was smiling or as close to smiling as an Aburame could. Shikamaru liked Naruto because the two of them shared an interest in shogi and go almost every day the two of them would play together. Kakashi smiled the first time he saw his son learning the game of shogi from the Nara heir Choji. Found Naruto and Shikamaru easy people to hang with. The two of them never made fun of him and would sometimes encourage him out of his shell. Kiba and Naruto became friends when Naruto showed that he truly cared about animals. When every once in a while when he found one that was injured at the training grounds, he always brought them with great care to Hana to look after. Kiba grew to respect him, and after Hana's partners showed by licking his face that Naruto could be completely trusted, Kiba started to consider Naruto as an honorary. Inyazuka Kurenai smiled when she heard about the reason behind Naruto's fang necklace. Naruto also showed that he had a love for nature when he and Ino were walking and always stepped around the plant life. Hinata was still shy, but she opened up to Naruto more often because he would always listen to her talk and help her slowly overcome her shyness. And just like Guy predicted, Lee considered Naruto to be his eternal rival, just like his father considered Kakashi his. Both parents always laughed when they remembered the first time the rivalry began. The Haddock family was sitting in the park, just enjoying the warm day when Guy and Lee walked up to them, and Lee turned to the mask-wearing boy who was reading a book about Kenjutsu. "Naruto, my eternal rival, I challenge you to a contest. If I lose I'll do 100 laps around the village." Naruto looked up from his book at the mini version of Guy and said, "You say something." "Ah. He has his father's too cool attitude." Lee screamed out. "Naruto, I challenge you to a game of Roshambo." Naruto sighed as he lifted his hand and said, "Alright. Ready?" Lee nodded and yelled out. Ro-sham-bo. His hand was in the shape of a rock while Naruto had paper ga. I lost. Well, looks like I have some laps to do. Lee said as he took off. Kakashi. Same challenge and penalty. Ready. Ready. Row. Sham. Bow. Guy showed paper while Kakashi had scissors. Guy face faulted, then he ran to catch up with his son. As soon as the two of them were out of sight and earshot, both Haddock men fell over laughing, holding their stomachs. Back in the present, Kurenai looked at her young son. Well, your father and I need to visit the hospital for something called a physical. That's where a medical nin checks our bodies to make sure we're alright. And you will be completely bored if you had to wait the entire time. Kakashi said as he sat down and joined his family for breakfast. Both Naruto and Kakashi started to eat their breakfast through their mask, which made Kurenai smile. The genjutsu they used was amazing to her. Naruto's mask was a dark blue, while his father's was black. After breakfast, Naruto dressed in his workout cloths and followed his morning routine of laps around the house, push-ups, sit-ups, and taijutsu practice with his father. Kurenai at first was worried that they were starting his training too soon, but never said anything when she heard both father and son smile and laugh as they trained together. Kakashi set up a wooden dummy and grabbed a couple of black straps. These are training weights, son, 3 pounds apiece for now until you get older. Do you know why we use these? To increase strength and speed. Very good. Now strap these one and let's get to work. Naruto nodded as he put on the weights and stood up. Now I want you to wear these at all times, except when in the bath, of course, or if I tell you to. Naruto nodded as he walked towards the dummy and started following the katas his father had already taught him from the Haddock Wolf Fist style developed by his grandfather, the White Fang of Konoha. Kakashi watched his son as he worked to grow used to the weights and train in their family taijutsu style. Kakashi looked at his watch and said, alright, that's enough for now. Naruto, Shikamaru is expecting you in an hour. Naruto nodded as he stopped and walked inside to shower and get dressed. Kakashi walked over towards the dummy and saw the fissures Naruto's fist had started to make in the wood. Kakashi smiled with pride. He's on his way to being a powerful shinobi. He though as he felt a presence behind him. Yes, what can I do for you? Kakashi said to the air, only for a weasel mask Anbu to appear before him. Haddock Senpai Hokage-sama requests the presence of you family in his chambers at around 2 in the afternoon. Very well, we'll be there. The Anbu nodded as he vanished from sight. Chapter 3. Surprise Engagement. A Mother's Broken Heart. Naruto walked through the streets of Konoha. In his hands was a book about the different styles of kenjutsu, depending on your weapon of choice, or in Tenten's case multiple choices. That was until he had a familiar voice call out Naruto. The young Haddock sighed as Lee and his father Guy ran up to him. Even though Lee was technically a year older than Naruto, there were times where everyone, though the bushy-browed young man was the younger of the two. My youthful rival, how are you this morning? Naruto waited a few seconds before he looked up from his book. How you say something? Lee and Guy both started almost pulling their hair out as they screamed, darn that too cool Haddock attitude. Kakashi sneezed when he walked into the hospital with his wife, but just shrugged it off as they walked into the waiting room. Naruto, I challenge you to a race. I'd like to, Lee, but Shikamaru is waiting for me. Lee fell face first into the ground as his challenge was pushed aside like that. Maybe next time, Lee. Naruto said before he walked away reading his book again. Morning, Tenten-chan. Naruto said as he walked past the weapons mistress in training. Morning, Naruto-kun. When Naruto reached the Nara complex, he heard Shikamaru. When is Naruto supposed to be here? Any minute now, Ka-chan. A lazy voice said, making Naruto smile. Shikamaru had inherited his father's laziness, much to his mother's sadness. Unless he's picked up his father's habit of always being late, he was probably delayed. Kakashi sneezed again, this time with a questioning look from his wife. Guess I'm a popular topic today. Kurenai shrugged. Naruto knocked on the Nara's door. See, there he is now. Shikaku said. The sound of small footsteps walked towards the door. Shikamaru opened the door for his friend. Hey Naruto. Hey Shika. I would have been here sooner, except Lee tried to challenge me to a race. Troublesome. Shikamaru said as the two walked along the wooden walkway around the Nara household until they reached an area next to a small grove where the Nara keep their deer herds. Shogi or go? But we played shogi last time. Shikamaru nodded as he brought out 2 small covered bowls and placed them on the board. Both boys reached into the bowl. Naruto pulled out 4 black stones while Shikamaru pulled 3 white stones. Looks like I'm white. Naruto said as they swapped bowls and started to play a match against one another. The entire time the two of them played trying to catch the other. Shikamaru smiled as he placed a stone down. Besides Dad, Naruto is the only one to give me a challenge. The lazy genius thought as he finished his turn, waiting for Naruto to make his. Time passed slowly for them. They were enjoying the quiet surrounded trees and animals. All we need is a skylight so I can look at the clouds, and this would be the perfect spot for Go and shogi. Without even realizing it, Kakashi and Kurenai walked up to the 2 young boys with Shikaku standing there with a smile on his face. How long have they been at it? Kurenai whispered so she didn't break Naruto's or Shikamaru's concentration. They've been playing that same game since Naruto arrived. Only taking breaks to eat and go to the bathroom. Shikaku said. Kakashi smiled at the news. They're teaching each other important lessons. Indeed. Patience and strategy very important to the life of a shinobi. They watched as Shikamaru prepared to place a stone before Naruto said, "I resign." Forfeiting the match. The three parents walked over towards them. "Naruto, you could have beaten me. Not when you recognized a chance to make life. And in go make life means saving stones from being captured." Naruto said, smiling at his friend. Shikamaru smiled as well, noticed that, huh? Yep. After you would have made life I would have lost by half a point thanks to the handicap. And I don't remember if black or white got the 5.5 points. Shikaku clapped as he walked up to the two of them. "Very well played, the both of you. Thank you Two-san. Thank you Nara-san. Hello Otu-san, Aka-chan. Yo." Kakashi said as he looked at the go board covered with white and black stones. Shikamaru, it's time for the meeting with the Hokage." Yoshino Nara's voice said from inside the clan leader's house. Both father and son sighed. "Troublesome." They said together, "We're going as well Naruto." Kurenai said with a smile at the young masked boy. Naruto nodded as he stood up and walked with his family towards Hokage Tower. Shikamaru and his family following them. Soon Naruto was surprised to see that not only were the Nara and Haddock family were there, but all of his other male friends as well. Joji, Kiba and Shino were there with their parents standing behind them. Neji and his father were there as well. Naruto nodded at the older boy who nodded back. There was also a boy he didn't recognize. Standing nearby, his hair in the shape of a duck's ass behind him, stood a man with a serious expression and a woman who looked like a very caring person. It took Naruto a moment to realize that the only other boy missing was Lee Jiji-san. "Where's bushy brows and Uber brows?" Naruto asked, getting a snicker from Hiruzen Sarutobi, while the strangers in the room all gave him a look of disbelief. "Well Naruto, this is a political meeting. One where Guy and Lee's Kenjutsu would cause a lot of problems." At the mention of the Forbidden Sunset Genjutsu, everyone that had ever seen it felt a shiver run down their spine. "I have called you here because it has been decided that to improve the relationship between Suna and Konoha, and both councils have decided that an arranged marriage between the daughter of the 4th Kazekage and one of Konoha's sons. As you've noticed, all but one of you belong to one of our clans, the Aburam, whose chakra bugs are famous for their ability to drain one of chakra, the Akamichi, whose Taijutsu and clan technique are considered great in strength, the Hyuga clan famous for their bloodline, the Byakugan, the Inyazuka, who along with their partners, are some of the world's best trackers, the Naras and their ability to work with Deers to use their antlers for medicine and for producing lazy geniuses, and finally the Uchiha clan with the Sharingan bloodline. Not to mention the Haddock family, whose patriarch and matriarch are famous within their own rights, Kakashi the copy ninja and Kurenai the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha. Naruto looked over at the duck-ass now named Uchiha to see him glaring at the Haddock family. "Why are they here? You've gathered all the male clan heirs, but they aren't part of a clan." The young Uchiha asked in a voice that sounded full of contempt. The man standing behind him showed a little smile, while the woman looked worried about the young Uchiha's attitude. Naruto kept his cool as he saw that all of the clan heirs including Neji look at the Uchiha like he was scum. Kakashi and his family were requested to appear by the Kazekage himself. The third said, making everyone look at the man in surprise. The young Uchiha looked like he was ready to comment when there was a knock at the door. "Enter." The door opened for a man wearing white robes trimmed with blue, his short brown hair was spiky, and his eyes were light brown. Next to him walked a miniature version of him and a little blonde girl. Behind him was another little boy with red hair holding the hand of a young blonde. "Ah, Kazekage-sama, welcome to our village." "Thank you Hokage-sama, I see you have gathered them all." "Indeed, may I introduce Shino Aburam, Choji Akamichi, Neji Hyuga, Kiba Inyazuka, Shikamaru Nara, and Sasuke Uchiha, all heir of the clans of Konoha. As well as Naruto Haddock, son of Kakashi and Kurenai Haddock." The Kazekage looked at the mask-wearing young man. "Except for the hair and eye color, he's the spitting image of your copy ninja. This is my son Kankuro, my brother-in-law Yashimaru, my second son Gaara, and finally my daughter Temari." The Konoha villagers bowed in respect towards the family. "Before I chose a suitable husband for my Temari, I wish to know what type of shinobi training these young men have already done." Shikaku Nara spoke up first. "I've started Shikamaru's strategic training as well, teaching him the fundamentals for our clan's jutsu." Tauza spoke next. "Joji isn't yet ready for training. Our family jutsus aren't taught till they are closer to academy age." Each clan parent voiced the same until the Uchiha mentioned that he was soon to start Sasuke's training in fire jutsus. "And you Haddock, what training has Naruto gone through so far?" "Naruto has been doing a morning fitness routine of 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and laps around our household every morning for the last year. I have also started having him wear training weights to increase his speed and strength while teaching him the family Taijutsu Wolf Fist. This morning after his workout, I'm proud to say I saw the start of fissures in the wooden dummy I had Naruto preform katas against. Soon after he gained the ability to feel his chakra, I'll teach him control and ways to increase his chakra reserves. Afterwards I'll start with a few academy jutsu, substitution being the first that comes to mind. I am also proud to say his mind is currently being trained by both his mother and the Nara family to increase skills and knowledge. There hasn't been a single time I nor his mother has been able to best him in a game of Go or Shogi. The clan parents there all gasped at the regiment the young Haddock was working through, as did all but one of the children. Then my decision has been made clear for me. I chose Naruto Haddock as my daughter's fiancé and my future son-in-law. While the other clan heads were nodding in understanding, Yugaku Uchiha was furious. Why are you choosing the son of a thief when you could have an elite for a son-in-law? The Kazekage looked at Fugaku and said, my daughter will attract a lot of unwanted attention from not only my enemies, but from yours as well. Since she is to be staying here, I want to make sure her fiancé is able to protect her. At your son's current level, I'll bet Naruto here could defeat him in a single move. What would be the stakes? A new voice called out. Everyone turned to see the weasel mask Anbu that had approached Kakashi this morning. If your Sasuke can prove me wrong, I'll have Temari marry him. However, if I am right, you must hand over one of your B-ranks fire jutsus. Fugaku smiled. Deal. Sasuke, show them what an elite can do. Sasuke nodded at his father before he glared at Naruto. Naruto 100 times 10. Kakashi said, making Naruto smirk as he walked forwards until he was in the middle of the room and pulled out his book and waited for Sasuke to make the first move. He didn't have long to wait. You dope, I'll teach you to respect your betters. Sasuke yelled as he charged Naruto, his fist ready to swing only for him to hit air. Too slow. Naruto said, making Sasuke look behind him to see Naruto kneeling on the ground, his hands in the tiger sign. You lose. Leaf Village secret finger jutsu. Naruto cried out as he stabbed his fingers forward, making Sasuke cringe when he felt the fingers violate his ass and shot into the air in pain. 1000 years of death. Naruto cried out as Sasuke shot forward and hit the roof of the Hokage's office and falling onto the ground out cold. Naruto kneeled there waiting until he started to hear someone snicker. He looked behind to see the Kazukige's son Kankuro trying desperately to hide his laughter until he couldn't take it anymore and burst out laughing. Kiba wasn't far behind him. Soon all of the young men, Temari, and the parents except for the Uchihas were almost rolling on the ground, laughing at the sight they had just seen. Even the Anbu snickered a little as he pulled out a scroll and handed it to the Kazekage. 1B ranked Uchiha fire jutsu as promised. The Kage nodded as he placed the scroll in his robe pocket. Now that is settled. Temari, you will be staying here with your fiancé and his family. Temari nodded, but Naruto could see the sadness in her eyes. He decided to ask something to help her. Is there any way she could visit from time to time? Temari looked at Naruto in surprise, but it quickly changed to gratitude. The Kazekage scratched his chin and thought, I don't see why not, but I would prefer if you wrote ahead for permission to enter the village, since she will considered a member of Konoha. Kurenai smiled at her son's thoughtfulness towards the young girl. That's fine. Kakashi said, looking at his son, pride shining in his eye as he rustled his hair. Before we leave, I ask that you please ensure that she receives training in her wind nature chakra. Of course. I'll ask Asuma to help since he too has wind nature chakra. The Kazekage nodded as he looked at his sons. Say goodbye to your sister, it may be a while before you see her again. Kankuro nodded as he walked forward and hugged his twin, then walked towards Naruto. Take care of her. With my life. Naruto vowed. Kankuro nodded. Gaara walked up to Temari, who wrapped her arms around him and hugged him tightly. The young man was surprised at the action, but returned it after a few moments of shock. After she released him, Gaara walked over to Naruto. Gaara offered his hand to Naruto, who knocked it aside and hugged the redhead as well, surprising him even more. We're brothers now, Gaara, no need to be so formal. The black-haired boy said to the redhead, who almost seemed to cry when he was in his new brother's arms. Take good care of One-chan. He whispered, trying so hard not to cry. I promise, and I never break my promises, just ask any one of my friends. Shikamaru, Kiba, Shino, and Choji all nodded to show he was telling the truth. Kakashi smiled at his son, and Kurenai almost looked ready to cry when she saw the small happiness Naruto was bringing his fiancé's brother. Temari almost broke out in tears as well. Gaara almost had no one that showed him any kindness, and here was a boy their age who barely knew him, but was already calling him brother and treating him in such a manner. Naruto held Gaara at arm's length, and I smiled at him. Gaara smiled as well. Temari, behave for the Haddocks and don't forget to write us every once in a while. Yashimaru said as he hugged his niece. Temari nodded. Make us proud, Temari. The Kazekage said, hi to-san. Temari said, pride filling her voice as she stood a little taller. The Kazekage smiled as he and the rest of Temari's family prepared to leave. Surely you'd like to see the place where your daughter will be staying at. Kurenai said, making the Kazekage look at her. If I can't trust the family of her fiancé, tell me now and I will call this whole thing off. Kurenai backed away and didn't say another word. Naruto did like to see that look on his mother's face. Ah-chan was just worried about Temari. Please don't get upset at a mother for worrying about her future daughter-in-law. Naruto said, making the Kazekage look down at him. Naruto just stared right back. Both were looking each other in the eye. Everyone in the room watched the two stare at each other, only the adults knew the Kazukiage was measuring up Naruto, as B slowly was releasing killing intent over time. Naruto could feel it, but he wasn't going to give up trying to defend his mother. After some time passed, the Kazukiage smiled as he looked away from Naruto and back at Kurenai. You have a strong boy here and he's right, I apologize for being so hard on you when you were just worried about my daughter. When he looked back at Naruto he smiled, I'll be watching your career closely, little wolf. Naruto returned the smile, and the man, his two sons and his brother-in-law, walked out of the office. As soon as the door was closed, Kurenai kneeled down and pulled Naruto into her arms and just about squeezed the life out of him. Kacchan choking, not breathing. Kurenai released him and he started gasping for breath. A few of the other kids snickered a little at the sight. Though easy on him, Kurchan, he did only just get engaged, his fiancée might get jealous. Kakashi said with a smile until Kurenai looked at him with a mild glare, he's still my little boy. Yes, but if you coke him to death with one of those hugs, you'll also be responsible for the war between Suna and Konoha. Kurenai looked up at her husband, a pout starting to form on her face. Temari walked up to the slightly dazed young man. Can I see what's behind your mask? The room got very quiet at the question as Naruto scratched the back of his head and said, sure, when we are at home. Naruto said, making a few groan out in disappointment, but Temari nodded her understanding. The new couple turned towards the Hokage. Is there anything else, Oji-san? Temari was surprised to hear her future husband be so informal with their leader, but the man just laughed as he said, no, you're all dismissed. Naruto nodded before he turned to Temari. Would you like to see Konoha? He asked as he offered his arm to her the same way he had seen his father do many times before. I'd love to. Temari said as she took his offered arm, and the two of them walked out of the office and closed the door behind them. Kurenai tried to keep a neutral face, but Kakashi knew better as he held his wife and teleported them away in a cloud of smoke. Once the two of them were back at their home, Kurenai felt the tears start to fall. Kakashi pulled her in close and just held her. It's happening sooner than I thought it would. Kurchan, she's going to steal him away from us, Kashi. Kurenai, don't think of it as losing our son, think about it as if we're gaining a daughter. Kurenai tried, but all that time all she could think was he's not going to need me anymore. They'll always need you, Kurchan, Kakashi said as he held his wife and ran his fingers through her long black hair. Kurenai felt the tears fall freely down her face. Please hold me. She whispered. Kakashi's arms tightened around her. Kurchan, we aren't losing him. I know that in my mind, but my heart won't listen. Kurenai cried into his shirt until she felt something wet on the top of her head. She looked up to see her husband had tears in his eyes as well. Hashi-kun. It kills me to see you like this. Kurenai smiled a little and snuggled into his arms and chest. I'll be okay, it's just I thought I had years before he found the Kunoichi that would take him away from us. Kurchan, nothing like that is going to happen. The both of them are far too young to be anywhere near ready to leave your nest. Kurenai's smile grew. I know, but it still worries me is all. Kakashi smiled as he gently kissed her lips. She returned the kiss, enjoying the feel of him trying to comfort her. Her arms went around his neck and pulled him in closer to her. After they broke the kiss, she smiled at him. I love you, Kashi-kun. I love you to Kurchan. Chapter 4, Life in Konoha. Naruto and Temari were walking down the village streets when Naruto heard a familiar voice call out, Naruto, my eternal rival. Temari turned and blenched as she saw the bold-haired green spandex orange leg worms wearing Rock Lee. You escaped my earlier challenge, but this time I will win. Temari looked at Naruto to see him with his back turned to Lee, turning slowly. You say something, Lee? Lee grabbed his hair and pulled on it. Damn, that too cool Haddock attitude. You'll see one of these days you will acknowledge the flames of youth. As Lee started to strike his good guy pose, Naruto turned Temari away and covered her eyes, yelling out, don't look. Temari was wondering what was going on until she heard them. The screams of pain and torment coming from all around them, only to be silenced a few minutes later. Naruto uncovered her eyes and slowly turned the two of them back to see every villager near the bushy-browed freak was passed out on the ground. Joji. A girl screamed, making Naruto and Temari turn towards it and run to see what the problem was. They arrived to see Ino kneeling on the ground, Shikamaru next to her, while Choji was on his back, looking like he had suffered a seizure. Choji, you poor brave fool, why? What happened here? Naruto yelled out, making them look up to see him. Ino didn't see Lee about to cast his family's Kenjutsu. Choji saw everything and jumped in front of her, hiding her from the view, but he took the full blast of the jutsu. Naruto nodded as he reached into his pouch and pulled out a scroll, opened it and bit into his thumb, and he hit the seal. A small cloud of smoke appeared, and after it cleared they saw a family-sized bag of barbecue chips. I've got his medicine right here. Naruto opened the bag and waved a chip over the portly boy's nose. When nothing happened for a few minutes, both Ino and Shikamaru looked downhearted until Choji's nose started to twitch. There he is, come on back, buddy. Naruto said as Choji started to open his eyes. BB barbecue. That's right, Choji smelled that smoky flavor. Naruto said while Shikamaru and Ino smiled as their friend groaned as he woke up and looked at Ino. Are you okay? His voice was shaky, but he had a smile on his face. Ino nodded as she helped him sit up, then wrapped him in a hug. "Thanks for protecting me. Anytime?" Choji said as Naruto offered the open bag to him. Choji reached in and pulled out a handful and started to snack on them, while Naruto smiled as he started to stand up. "Ino, I'd like you to meet Temari, my fiancé," Naruto said, his smile still on his face. Ino, however, was shocked into silence as she just gasped at Naruto. "Well, what do you know, she can be quite," Shikamaru said, making a few of them laugh at the flabbergasted blonde. The young Yamanaka shook her head. "Your fiancé?" Everyone there covered their ears at the volume of Ino's voice, unaware of the villagers that heard her proclamation. Temari gave a small grin at the look of complete disbelief on Ino's face. "Yep." Both Suna's and Konoha's councils decided that in order to strengthen the treaty between the two villages, a marriage between the daughter of the Kazekage and one of Konoha's sons would increase such a strength. Naruto said. "When the Kazekage looked at all of us, he chose Naruto because he's been the one that's had the most serious training. Naruto even beat Sasuke Uchiha in a single move to prove the Kazekage's point that he was the strongest one among us," Shikamaru said. Ino looked between the two boys and Temari. "Well, at least you got a nice person as your fiancé," Ino said once she stood up and took both of Temari's hands. "Welcome to Konoha then, Temari. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better." Temari smiled and nodded. Naruto smiled as well as he offered his arm to Temari again. "Thanks, Ino. I'm going to show Temari around." Ino nodded as Temari took his arm again and the two of them started walking around the village. "Well, I understand you turned us around and covered my eyes to protect us. What were you protecting us from?" Lee and his father Midogai have a forbidden genjutsu that goes with their flames of youth speech. Everyone that has ever seen it has experienced pain from the effects. In fact, some of their victims can't look at a sunset again without shivering in fear. Temari nodded. "That would explain the almost seizure-like effects it has on people, but how did waving a potato chip over the fa?" Naruto covered her mouth in fright and looked around to make sure Choji wasn't nearby. Once he saw they were in the clear, he looked at Temari and said, "It's very taboo to call an Akimichi that word. Unless you're looking for a fight, please refrain from using it." Temari nodded as he removed his hand from over her mouth. Naruto showed his scroll to Temari. "This scroll is filled with items that each of my friends associate with their hobbies or favorite foods. If they are unfortunate enough to be hit with that forbidden sunset genjutsu, I have an item to help wake each of them up from the trance." Temari nodded as he put the scroll back into the pouch on his side. Naruto showed Temari everywhere in the shinobi district, introduced her to a few more of his friends. Tenten and Temari seemed to hit it off the best when Naruto showed her the weapons shop. The last place he stopped at for the day was Ichihara's raiment stand. "Well, if it isn't Naruto, and who is your friend?" "Hey Oji-san, I am Onichan, this is Temari, my fiancé." Temari, the world's best ramen cooks, Toru and his daughter Ayame Ichihara. Although both were surprised to hear that she was his fiancé, both Ichihara smiled at the little girl who smiled back. "So what will it be today, Naruto?" "Well, I'll have miso pork, and what would you like, Temari-chan?" The girl was surprised to hear the suffix, but smiled as she looked at the menu. "I'll have the vegetable ramen," she said once she had made up her mind. The chef nodded as he started to work on their orders with a smile. "Dusan and Kachan bring me here every once in a while, it's kind like the family get-together place," Naruto said with a smile that made Temari smile as well. "Thank you for being so kind to me today, Naruto-kun." Though his mask hid most of it, Naruto blushed at the suffix and looked at her. "You're welcome, Temari-chan. And thanks for asking if there was any way for me to visit Suna again." Temari said, her voice sounding a little sad, but she was surprised when he placed his hand on top of hers. "Family is very important. I couldn't imagine going through life never seeing Tusan or Kachan ever again, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone." Temari looked at the young boy in surprise, but smiled and leaned into his side as two bowls were placed in front of them. They had only taken their first bites when a voice behind them said, "Yo Naruto. I knew we'd find you here." Temari jumped at the sound, but Naruto kept his composure as he turned to see his mother and father walking into the stand hand in hand. "Hey Tusan Kachan, after showing Temari around the village, I brought her here to our family spot." Kurenai smiled at her son as she sat down on his left and Kakashi sat on Temari's right. "One chicken," Kurenai said. "I'll take shrimp," Kakashi ordered as the elder Ichihara nodded as he set to work. "So what did you see today?" Kakashi asked. Naruto let Temari tell them about how they had walked all around the shinobi district and around the nearby area, but before all of that we met this strange kid with a bold haircut and green spandex with orange leg warmers. Kakashi and Kurenai looked frightened. "Naruto saved me from seeing some kind of sunset genjutsu." Both parents breathed a sigh of relief, "And he helped Choji, right?" she asked Naruto, who nodded, recover from his exposure. Kurenai looked at Naruto. "Choji got hit. He was blocking Ino, she didn't see Lee, and was about to get hit with a full blast until he jumped in the way and blocked the jutsu. Speaking of which, I need to remember to replace his medicine in my scroll." Kakashi smiled. "Those three are just like their fathers, always looking out for each other." Naruto nodded as his father's bowl was placed before them. Temari watched father and son as they brought a helping of noodles to their face, only for the food to pass right through their mask. Kurenai laughed at the young girl's surprised look. They have a genjutsu on their mask that allows food and drink to pass through them, so they can eat without having to remove their mask. Temari sighed but nodded. Why do you two wear masks to begin with? Family tradition. Father and son said together after they had taken a drink of tea. Do you ever take them off? Naruto nodded. When we're at home all Ka-chan has to do is ask, and Toussaint takes his off. I'll do the same for you Temari-chan. Temari smiled while both Kakashi and Kurenai were surprised to hear the endearing suffix so soon after they had met. Thanks Naruto-kun. That surprised them even more. A part of Kurenai's heart throbbed at the suffixes between them, but she smiled at how close the future husband and wife were getting. The family sat together and ate dinner. As soon as they finished, Kakashi paid for their bowls, and Temari took Naruto's arm again as they walked together, his parents walking in a similar manner behind them. Why don't we getting something for dessert? Kakashi asked his wife, who thought about it and nodded. Naruto, head to the bakery, we're going to grab a cake for dessert. Okay Toussaint. Naruto said as he led Temari back to the bakery he showed her earlier. Once inside, the two of them looked at the cakes on display. Naruto decided to let Temari pick the cake since she was new and she looked fascinated with the devil's food cake. Fan of chocolate, eh? Naruto asked when he saw her eyeing the rich chocolate cake. Temari blushed a little but nodded. Toussaint, can we get that one? Naruto asked, pointing to the devil's food cake. Sure. Kakashi said as he paid for it and brought the boxed cake out of the store as they all headed home. Once the door to the Haddock household was closed, Temari turned to Naruto. Naruto-kun, please take off your mask so I can see your face. Naruto smiled as he reached into his mask and lifted it and the one behind it over his head, revealing his whisker-marked face as he smiled at her. She was momentarily blinded by the beauty of his face. She lifted her hand and started to rub his cheek. As she did, Naruto turned towards her hand and almost seemed to purr at the feeling. Temari smiled at her future husband Kurenai and Kakashi walked into the kitchen and set the cake on the counter as pulled down some plates from the shelf and cut slices for the family to share. Both Temari and Naruto were in the living room. Naruto had his head in her lap as she continued to stroke his whisker marks, smiling at the almost cat-like way he acted towards her touch. Kurenai walked in to see the scene and almost dropped the 2 plates of cake she was carrying as she walked in and set them on the coffee table and almost ran from the room and into her own. Naruto seemed to sense her sadness as he sat up and followed after her. Temari looked sad at the idea that she was responsible, only to hear Kakashi say, back before Naruto was born, Kurenai's greatest fear was that she'd never have a child because she was known as the Konoha Ice Queen. Her greatest ambition was to not only become a genjutsu specialist but to also become a mother, so when she had Naruto she felt such a strong connection with him that she began to worry about what would happen when he fell in love and left our nest, so to speak. So she worried that I'm stealing Naruto away from her? Temari asked, making Kakashi smile. No. More like she's worried that Naruto isn't going to need her anymore. He sighed as he looked at the 5-year-old. Kuro-chan is afraid that Naruto, the baby she held in her arms, is growing up too fast and won't need her anymore. The idea scares her more than facing Orochimaru in battle. Temari went wide-eyed hearing this. She more afraid of losing Naruto than Asanin. Kakashi nodded his head. Naruto walked down the hallway and knocked on his parents' door. Ka-chan, open the door please. When she didn't answer, Naruto opened the door to see his mother sitting on the bed shaking. Naruto walked up to Kurenai and stood in front of her. Aka-chan. Kurenai looked up, her eyes had tears leaking out of them, and before she opened her mouth Naruto crawled into her lap and hugged her tightly. Kurenai returned the hug without a moment's hesitation. What's wrong Ka-chan? I'm scared Naruto-kun. I am afraid that soon you won't need me. I'll always need you Ka-chan. I'll always need your help with life problems, times when I'm confused and scared. Aka-chan, I'm always going to need you. Naruto said, tightening his hold on his mother. When he released her, she had a smile on her face. It was a little sad, but it was genuine. Ever since I first held you in my arms you always had a way of bringing a smile to my face. I know I'm probably acting silly, but sometimes we can't help the way we act when our hearts are in danger. Naruto smiled at his mother and hugged her again. Kurenai smiled as she held her almost 5-year-old son. I also thought I had years before you would be interested in girls and find the one that you would one day marry. I didn't think that you would be engaged before your 10th birthday. Naruto laughed a little. Kurenai joined him as she wiped her face. Thank you Naruto-kun for coming to check up on me. I love you my son. I love you too Aka-chan. After Kurenai cleaned herself up a little, she and Naruto walked out and into the living room. Kurenai walked into Kakashi's arms. I'm sorry if I was being rude earlier. It's okay. Kakashi-san explained everything to me. Kurenai nodded as she walked into the room and sat down on the couch next to her husband. Naruto sat down on a cushion next to Temari. As the 4 future family members sat together and enjoyed a slice of cake apiece. Dima-chan, what kind of things do you like to do in your spare time? Well, the family spent the night getting to better know one another. Naruto smiled when he heard her say she loved the smell of dessert flowers and got a thought in his head about a welcoming present for his future bride. At night, as everyone was getting ready for bed, Naruto was wearing his mask again as he laid down in his bed and pulled his covers up only for his door to be opened by none other than Temari. "Naruto-kun, can I stay in here tonight?" Without really thinking about it, Naruto pulled his covers back and said sure. Temari nodded as she walked into the room. Once she was under the covers with Naruto, she turned on her side and looked into his eyes. "Naruto-kun, thank you." "For what?" "For being so kind to me today." Naruto smiled at Temari and wrapped his arms around her as if to hug her anytime. "Tima-chan." Temari smiled as he held her and returned the hug. The future man and wife fell asleep soon afterwards, like this, Temari's face tucked into his chest while his head was on top of hers. Kurenai and Kakashi walked down the halls and looked into Temari's room and saw the bed still made, looking as if no one had touched it. In a mild panic, the parents ran to Naruto's room to see the blonde and black-haired children snuggled together. Kurenai couldn't help but gush at the sight. Kakashi produced a camera and took a quick snapshot of the pair of them. "This will definitely be something to show the girls when the picture is developed," Kurenai said with a smile. Kakashi smiled as well. It seemed that whatever Naruto said to her relaxed the young mother. Hardly any time has passed since they met, and yet the two of them are acting as if they've known each other since they were in diapers. Kakashi said, already calling each other kun and chan. "I swear it's as if they've been engaged for years." Kakashi joked. Kurenai laughed a little as she allowed her husband to lead her away from the sight once they closed the door to Naruto's room. Temari woke up as the sun hit her face. As she opened her eyes, she woke to see Naruto on his back, and once she looked, she realized she was snuggled into his side with her head on his chest. "Morning, Tima-chan." Temari looked up to see Naruto looking down at her. Temari smiled. "Morning, Naruto-kun." Naruto smiled as the two of them got out of bed. As soon as his feet hit the ground, Temari realized that Naruto was still half asleep. "Naruto, I want to paint the room." Was the only reply she got, making her nod her head. "Yep, he isn't awake yet." Temari followed her almost sleepwalking fiancé as he left the room and walked into the kitchen. "Morning, son." Temari laughed a little at the early morning banter between father and son. "Has he always been like this?" "Wait till you see his mother," Kakashi said as Kurenai walked into the room. Kakashi walked over and whispered in Temari's ear. Temari smiled and nodded, then turned to Kurenai. "Morning, Ka-chan." "So I was thinking of redecorating mine and Naruto's room." "You know we want to be ready for your first grandchild." Both mother and son went At this, Temari and Kakashi just laughed. "Will they remember this?" "Everything will register after they are fully awake," Kakashi said as he set down 2 glasses of milk and 1 of coffee. Both mother and son took long draughts of their drinks, then seemed to completely wake up. "Morning, Kashi, what do you mean grandchild?" Kurenai yelled. Temari and Kakashi were fighting smiles that were threatening to plaster their faces. "Kurenai, they're pulling your leg." A voice from the hallway said. Everyone turned to see a woman wearing a trench coat that covered a fishnet bodysuit, a short skirt, and nothing else, her purple hair pulled up. Kakashi groaned. "Anko, you couldn't just let us have our fun, could you?" Kurenai glared at her husband and future daughter-in-law. "Sorry, Kakashi, but Kurenai and my nephew come first." "Thanks, Auntie Anko." "No problem, Squirt," Anko said as Naruto ran up to her and she kneeled down and accepted a hug from her nephew Godson. In following with the ruse, Kakashi and Kurenai named Anko Naruto's godmother and Azuma his godfather. Anko, however, preferred to have Naruto call her Auntie Anko. "So I hear there is to be a new addition to the family," Anko said once she picked Naruto up and set him back in his chair. "Oh right. Auntie Anko, this is Temari-chan, my fiancé," Naruto said, introducing the two women. Anko looked at the former Suna resident. Temari was a little scared under the young woman's watchful eye. Anko almost looked like a snake looking at the rat it is about to strike. As it turns out, she was in a move Temari couldn't follow. Naruto's hand appeared and had a hold of a snake that looked ready to attack Temari. "Auntie Anko," Naruto said in a stern voice. Though she put on an innocent face, Anko was shocked at how good Naruto's reflexes were. "She wasn't the only one, Naruto-kun, I didn't even see you move." Naruto gave a small laugh and scratched the back of his head with his free hand. "Dusan likes to surprise you every once in a while, and if you don't react quickly enough you regret it." Temari nodded when she though back to Naruto's display against Sasuke Chihou. "So Kakashi-san created the 1,000 years of death technique." "Precisely. However, I was only able to use it against Naruto once. After that it became a game to see which one of us could get the other," Kakashi said. It was obvious to Temari that he was proud of the fact that Naruto was able to anticipate his movement so well. "Anyway, Auntie Anko, did you really have to use one of your summons?" "I just wanted to see if she was strong enough for you, Naru," Anko said, letting fake tears build in her eyes. Naruto just rolled his eyes and shook his head as Anko came up behind him and wrapped his arms around him, hugging his back to her chest tightly. Temari felt a ping of jealousy hit her heart. "Are you really related to her, Naru-kun?" Technically she's just my godmother. Naruto stopped when Anko dropped him on his feet and clenched her heart and looked away while crouching on the ground. But she's more like an aunt, so I call her Auntie Anko instead of godmother. Anko seemed to recover instantly and returned to hugging her nephew. I knew you didn't just think of me as just your godmother. Anyway, I actually came over to say congratulations to the two of you and offer early wedding presents. Anko said as she once again dropped Naruto and left the room. Temari stared after her. Is she always like this? Only when Naruto is around. She, like his mother, fell completely in love with him. Any other time she's threatening torture or making sexual innuendos. Kurenai is the closest thing I have to a sister. Of course I'd fall for her son. Although I think it would have been cool if he had inherited her eyes. Anko. You know why he doesn't have these eyes? Kurenai said as Anko walked back into the room, her hands behind her back. Yeah, I keep forgetting it's a trademark of your family. At Temari's confused look, Kurenai said, my eyes are special because they allow me to see genjutsus and their weaknesses. However, it's extremely rare for anyone to get them, hence why it isn't considered a bloodline. Since he wasn't born with them, Naruto is more likely to become an ninjutsu-kenjutsu specialist like his father, grandfather, or a mix of both. I want to wait and see what element type I am before I make up my mind. Naruto added. Temari nodded, understanding a little. So unless he was born with those eyes, then he never would have gotten them. Correct? Kurenai said, sounding a little sad. Anko changed the subject when she set down two wrapped gifts in front of Naruto and Temari. I decided to get the two of you something special. Naruto smiled as he opened the gift in front of him and revealed a weapons pouch along with a pair of gloves that only covered up to his knuckles and a new trench coat that had a white wolf on the back. Oh, this is so cool. Thanks, Auntie Anko. Naruto yelled as he ran forward and wrapped Anko in a tight hug. Well, it suits you, Naruto. After all, with names like the White Fang and Copycat, you have to make yourself known. Anko said with a smile, returning the hug, a tear leaking out of her eye. Temari's gift was similar to Naruto's, well, at least with a weapons pouch, but there was also a book inside. When Temari picked it up, she saw that it was a wedding planner. I don't know your clothing size or what type of fighter you'll be, so I figured I'd get you a gift that you can use in the future. Thank you very much. Temari said as she started to eat the breakfast that Kakashi set down in front of her. Anko joined them for breakfast and watched with Kurenai when Naruto did his morning routine with Kakashi, only this time Temari joined them in the exercise portion. Once they had finished the warm-up, Kakashi produced a light blue scroll and handed it to Temari. Since you haven't started to jutsu training yet, I'm going to be teaching you a style called Raven's Wing. Can you guess as to why it is called this? Temari shook her head, so Kakashi turned to his son Naruto. Because it supports Wolf Fist. Correct, very good son. Naruto beamed at the praise. When my grandfather developed Wolf Fist, he also created a style that works with it, just like ravens and wolves work together in the wilderness. Wolf Fist is a style meant for mid to close range fighters, whereas Raven's Wing is for mid to long range fighters. Temari, I'm teaching you Raven's Wing so that you and Naruto can work together on the battlefield together and stick together on the same team. Temari and Naruto nodded at his words. Now Naruto practiced the basic katas on the dummy again while I start to teach Temari the basics of Raven's Wing. Hi to-san. Naruto said as he went to work following his father's orders. The morning passed like that until Kakashi and Temari were both surprised by the sound of shattering wood. All four spectators looked to see a splintered dummy in front of Naruto, who was breathing heavily. Anko was the first to recover. Ha. That's my nephew. She yelled while clapping, making Naruto beam at the praise. Kurenai walked forward and hugged her son. Kakashi walked over and then beamed at his son and clapped him on the shoulder. That's my boy. Naruto beamed at his father's words. Temari walked up to Naruto and kissed him on the cheek. Well done, Naru-kun. Thanks, Tima-chan. Naruto said as he kissed her cheek as well, making Temari blush. Chapter 5. 3 years later, two 8-year-old children awoke from their slumber, the boy wearing nothing but a pair of shorts, the girl was wearing a normal nightie for her age, but the blonde girl was snuggled tightly into the boy. Naruto and Temari had shared a bed ever since that first night together, and neither ever thought about sleeping in a different bed. Morning, Naru-kun. Temari smiled at the sound as she looked over at their windowsill, where she saw a flower box filled with her favorite desert flower. She smiled whenever she looked at the first birthday gift her husband-to-be ever got for her. The next time she had seen Ino, she had thanked her for helping Naruto with a gift. She was surprised when she learned that Naruto hadn't gotten any help from the Yamanaka family when he ordered the flowers for her 2 weeks before her birthday. That night she kissed Naruto on the lips and hugged him tightly, though he didn't know why he didn't say anything to stop her. Today they had a day off from training because Kakashi and Kurenai had an appointment with a doctor recently. Kurenai hadn't been feeling that well, she kept throwing up, and the only thing she seemed to be able to keep down were crackers or wafers. Although both parents smiled every once in a while, they weren't saying anything till they had a healer double check on things. In the 3 years since they started training together, both had spent their mornings learned their fighting styles and their afternoons as their free time. The two of them spent most of it walking around the village. Every once in a while, they'd spend time with their friends. Temari and Tenten had become the best of friends, both had a similar dream to prove the true worth of the kunoichi. Naruto, and the future weapons mistress had always gotten along because of his interest of one day becoming a kenjutsu specialist. Naruto always smiled when his friends made the effort to involve Temari in their plans, as well. Nerukan, we need to wake up. Temari sighed. Free noddles at Ichiharas. Temari said, making Naruto almost jump out of bed. What Dima-chan, do you really need to do that to me? Naruto said once he finished waking up. He laid back down and wrapped his arms around her again. We need to get up. The gang is expecting us in about an hour. Naruto nodded as he rubbed his eyes and slowly let go of her warm body, slipping out of bed. Naruto wasn't the only one who hated to let go of the other in the morning. Temari was always comfortable in his arms and always missed his warmth, and as Kakashi kept teasing her pillow, it's true that the two of them loved falling asleep together, but Temari didn't understand why her future father-in-law loved to tease them. At least Kurenai was kinder and loved having another girl in the house. Both Naruto and Temari had just entered into the Shinobi Academy and were in a class with all their friends, except for Tenten and Neji. Neji actually was always kind towards Naruto because of the great service he had done the Hyuga clan. One night while Naruto and Temari were walking around the village, Naruto caught sight of something they both found suspicious. A man wore a mask and completely dressed in black, but the mask wasn't anything Anbu ever wore. What's worse was the man had a sack and was skulking around the Hyuga compound. There's something in that sack that doesn't belong to that man, Naruto said before he charged at him. Temari followed behind Wolfang Fist. Bite strike. Naruto called out as he shaped his hand into a claw-like motion and hit the man above his heart, making the man gasp. Temari took advantage of his lapse to grab the sack before it hit the ground. Naruto then performed a perfect backspin kick and knocked the man onto the ground. Naruto took up his stance in front of his fiancée, waiting for the man to try and retaliate until he Ashi and his Ashi Hyuga showed up. His Ashi made the first move and rendered the man unconscious by simply pressing a point on his body. Temari then opened the sack only for a shivering Hinata to almost fall out of it. Hiashi walked towards his daughter and wrapped her in his arms, then looked at Naruto and Temari. Thank you both for stalling him long enough to allow us to catch up. The Haddock and future Haddock bowed and said together, it was our honor, Hyuga-sama. The Ashi smiled as he carried his daughter away. His Ashi walked up to them. I'll escort you two home once someone comes along and deals with this trash. Ever since that day, the both of them were considered friends of the Hyuga's cadet and main branches, and since the infiltrator survived the encounter, Kumo couldn't demand any kind of retribution. The next day Neji had approached Naruto and bowed to him. Thank you for saving Lady Hinata. Naruto returned the bow. It was my honor to protect a friend. Neji nodded as he walked away. One day in class, Ino had come up with the idea of having a picnic with all of their friends: Hinata, Shikamaru, Choji, Kiba, Shino, Tenten, and Neji. The idea sounded great to everyone but Shikamaru, who just said troublesome. When asked if he'd like to come, Ino suggested they all bring a dish to sample and drinks. Kurenai and Naruto worked together to make pot stickers. They had all learned that it was disastrous to eat anything Temari cooked. Her first attempt had been curry, and the only one to eat any of it had been Naruto to show support, a gesture Temari returned when Naruto spent the next 3 days in the hospital with food poisoning. Kakashi joked about taking the curry to Anko to use in the interrogations and tortures she performed. Anko returned the next day and gave the pot back. The Hokage felt like this was cruel and unusual punishment. Temari was saddened but smiled with Naruto just said he'd keep trying her cooking until she was happy with it. Eventually Kurenai begged Temari to stop poisoning her son to make her stay out of the kitchen. Although from that moment on Naruto seemed to have immunity to any poison Anko tried to use against him, so she might have poisoned his stomach, but she had helped improve his ninja career. Naruto, however, turned out to be a great chief, so they agreed to leave the cooking to him when they got a place of their own. Temari smiled when she thought about that. She always loved dreaming about their future away from the Haddock family home. Neither of them wanted anything fancy, just something comfortable where they can live away from the noise of the village's daily life. Temari wanted to have a garden where she could grow her favorite flowers and a nice spot with a large tree for them. Her favorite activity to do with Naruto is sit between Naruto's legs and lean back into his chest, then listen to him read to her. It didn't matter whether it was from a scroll or a book, ninja or civilian. At first she couldn't explain it, but she always felt so safe and warm when they were like this, and she couldn't get enough of it. When she had told Ino and Tenten about this, she realized that she was gushing, making both of her friends smile and tease her. Hinata, however, just smiled at her. You're lucky to have found someone who makes you feel so loved. Temari at first had been surprised by the remark. That night she talked with Kurenai. How does one when they're in love? Kurenai just smiled at her. Does your heart race when you see Naruto? Temari nodded. Do you get a feeling in your belly like there are hundreds of butterflies fluttering in it? Temari nodded again. When he holds you? You feel safe, warm, and happy for no reason. Yes. When he does something for you out of the kindness of his heart you cry, but it because you're happy and you just want to cover him in kisses. Yes. And finally are there moments when you feel like you just might melt from the warmth in your chest. Mainly when he does something as small as run his hand through your hair. Yes. Then my dear you are in love with your future husband. Tamari didn't know how to take the news. After all the only one that had shown her any form of love had been her mother. Tamari however was too young remember her clearly after she had died giving birth to Garrett. She never told Naruto about the talk but she wasn't worried, especially when every once in a while when she would catch him smiling at her for no reason and the look on his face always made her turn away to hide a blush. As Tamari bathed she smiled remembering when she found out that when Naruto looked at her like that it was his way of showing his feelings towards her without saying anything. She noticed it mainly when Kakashi would look at Kurenai the exact same way. Kakashi isn't a very outspoken person, so I know when he looks at me with that look of absolute devotion, it's his way of saying he loves me. Naruto seems to have gained such a look from his father, I swear it made my heart swell when I saw him looking at you like that. But I think you two are a little young, it seems both of you have fallen for each other much like Kakashi and I had. In a very short amount of time, but filled with love, respect, honesty, kindness, and devotion. In the time since Tamari came and joined the Haddock family, Tamari had learned what family life was like and it made her smile true both Kakashi and Kurenai were on active duty and they had to spend time at one of their friends' places but besides Shikamaru, who only seemed interested in Go or Shogi that wasn't a big issue. As Tamari finished putting her hair up in 4 different ponytails as walked out to see Naruto replacing his mask on his face, he stopped wearing them in bed after Tamari had asked him not to. She was still surprised that it was that easy to get him to remove his mask when they were at home but as soon as he stepped outside on it went and didn't come off until they were home again. Tamari didn't mind to be honest, she rather liked the idea of being the only one besides his mother and father that knew what his face looked like, though it drove their friends mad trying to think about what he looks like. The only one that would do anything crazy was Auntie Anko, who tried constantly to get a look under his or Kakashi's mask. The first attempt Tamari had witnessed was a failed surprise attack where both Naruto and Kakashi bent down, making Anko miss her simple attack of jump onto them and force their masks off. Anko flew past them and into bookstand they had stopped it damn it. She called out as the 2 masked men walked away. Kurenai then took out a bottle of water and winked at Tamari as she accidentally poured it all out on her best friend. Anko looked ready to kill Kurenai because her wet skin made her already almost see-through clothing cling even tighter to her skin. She had to run off and change her face the growing number of perverts in the village. Tamari looked up at Kurenai in surprise. I've warned her about swearing in front of Naruto. She simply said making Tamari laugh. Naruto carried their basket as Tamari linked their arms and walked together with him to training ground 10, a place with a nice field and a small stream. It was a great place to sit comfortably and just enjoy the day. Tamari wasn't surprised when they were the first to arrive. Naruto had taken the opposite ordeal of his father and arrived early to places instead of late. Naruto-kun. Yeah? Why is Kakashi-san always late? Naruto got a grieved look on his face every day he goes to the memorial stone our site to honor the fallen shinobi and kunoichi of our village. He talks with Grandpa, his old teammates Obito Uchiha and Rin, also to his sensei Minato Namikaze. Your father was taught by the yellow flash Tamari asked shouted making Naruto cringe away from the volume of her voice. First ow. Second you've seen his team photo, as well as Kachan's. Oh yeah I didn't recognize the smiling blonde in the picture. Naruto smiled I forgot everyone outside of the village thinks of him as the warrior that sent Iwa and Kumo running for the hills. Isn't that how you think of him? At first, but according to Toussaint there was more to the fourth than his reputation. The man was a genius when it came to Fujutsu in fact seals were fundamental in his transport jutsu Flying Thunder God, which gave him his name the Yellow Flash. So he was a sealing master. Yep and Toussaint also talked about how kind he was Naruto and Tamari sat together and talked about one of his heroes at least until Naruto my rival how are you? Both 8-year-olds sighed at the loud voice. It's never fails. How does he always know? Naruto shrugged. I believe we have interrupted a picnic between the future husband and wife. Mido guy said Naruto just winked at Tamari who gave a small smirk as they both looked up at the identical looking father and son. Can you say something? They said together. Both spandex wearing individuals' jaws dropped, then yelled ahhh. They've corrupted her with that too cool Haddock attitude. Don't worry young lady we will save you with the flames of youth. Guy said making Naruto move the two of them away from father and son. After a few seconds of silence, Naruto opened one eye and saw the duo were almost running away a team of villagers chasing them waving tools. You'd think they would have learned to not use that kinjutsu? Tamari asked. Naruto just shrugged. Medic. A voice yelled out making the two jump up to help. They arrived to see a slightly convulsing Kiba on the ground surrounded by Tenten and Niji. Naruto flushed out a familiar scroll. How bad was exposure? Naruto asked. Not too bad, I'd say 4 maybe 5 seconds. Neji said as Naruto nodded and bit his finger. Once he hit the scroll out of the cloud of smoke, there was a couple sticks of Dango Kiba's favorite dessert. Naruto repeated the same process that Temari had seen him use to revive Choji. When Kiba opened his eyes, damn that sunset no jutsu. His voice was weak, but Naruto smiled. Welcome back. Thanks for always being early. Naruto nodded as he helped his honorary brother onto his feet. You're lucky. You caught the Genjutsu near its end. Temari said. Kiba nodded as Naruto handed him a canteen. Thanks. Kiba said as he took a swig out of the canteen. One of these days those two will kill someone. Tenten said as the group headed up towards the training grounds. Let's just be glad Kakashi-san discovered a way to help people. Temari said, making everyone nod at her words. Once they were at the training ground sitting on the blanket, Naruto smiled and nodded towards the trees. Everyone looked to see Shino walk out of the forest. Naruto, Temari, Neji, Kiba, Tenten. Shino said in his monotone voice politely. Shino. How's the swarm? Naruto asked. Lively. Shino said as he walked over and sat down. Temari handed his a glass of tea. Thank you. Shino hadn't changed at all, except for the fact that he, like all of his family that were of academy age, now had his own swarm of chakra-eating bugs inside of his body. Naruto and Temari were one of the few that would ask Shino how his bugs were doing. He found it very kind of them. How is the training going, Naruto? Kiba asked. Good. Two-san thinks we're ready for chakra exercises. Sounds like a good idea. A new voice said, making everyone but Naruto jump. In fact, if they could see his face they'd know he was smiling. Weasel-san, how are you? The same Anbu officer ninja that had been in the Hokage's office appeared. Never could get the drop on either you nor your father, Naruto Nai-chan. The masked man said with a laugh. And to answer your question, I am good. Ever since Fugaku and his followers were arrested anyway. Naruto smiled at the mystery Uchiha. Yes, thanks to your efforts, that is. Naruto said, making Weasel nod. Indeed. Now I am here with a message for you from Hokage-sama. Weasel said as he handed Naruto a scroll. It's an announcement about the happy news towards the birth of Konohamaru Sarutobi, the honorary grandson. Naruto sighed a little. The kid's head will grow large before he's even walking. He said. Weasel gave a small laugh again. Naruto then slapped his hand against his forehead. I almost forgot. Naruto said as he reached into his pocket and produced a familiar scroll. I won this back for you from Kazuki-sama for you. Naruto said. Weasel took the scroll back, smiling behind his mask. Thank you, but how did you win this from him? Ramen eating contest. Naruto said in explanation, making everyone nod at his words. No one in the world could eat as much ramen as Naruto. Again, thank you. Have a good picnic. You're welcome, and don't work yourself too hard, Weasel-san. Weasel waved before he shunshined away. The small group was eventually joined by Hinata, Ino, Shikamaru, and Choji as they all sat and ate. Naruto set his food down all of a sudden and waited before anyone could ask. 3, 2, 1. Naruto counted, then ducked as a woman wearing a trench coat flew over him and Shikamaru, who had leaned back as soon as he saw Naruto move. The woman continued to almost fly until she hit the ground, then hit the ground with a fist, then looked up and spit out some grass. Damn. Are you ever going to give up, Auntie Anko? Naruto asked while one of his friends looked at him in surprise. Naruto has an aunt. They all thought at the same time. One day I will see what you and your father hide behind those masks of yours. You could just ask. Naruto said, making Anko's mouth hang open for a few seconds before she started to hit her head against the ground. Damn stupid. Naruto shook his head as she did then. Temari smiled at the sight of their friends looking slightly put out by this slightly crazed woman. Anko then stood up and walked up to Naruto, then giving him her best puppy dog eye. No jutsu, Naruto, please show me what is behind your mask. Naruto looked at Temari, then slowly reached towards his mask. You want to know what's behind this mask? Naruto asked as everyone started to lean in to get a look. Behind this mask, Naruto said, hooking his finger in the mask. Seeing the anticipation on all of their faces as he did as Temari was wondering what Naruto was doing, he never took his mask off before another mask. Naruto said, revealing his second mask, making Anko, Hinata, Ino, Tenten, Kiba, Shikamaru, Neji, and Choji deadpan and face fall onto the ground. Temari couldn't help herself but laugh at Naruto's prank. Naruto laughed as well and high-fived his fiancé. Anko glared up at her nephew, who just smiled at her. Why do you and your father constantly do this to me? Because only Aka-chan and Tima-chan are allowed to see behind our masks. It's tradition for only betrotheds and wives' husbands are allowed to see a Haddock's face. Naruto said, making every one of their friends slap their hands against their forehead with a sigh. I told you it would be something troublesome like that. Shikamaru said to his Ino, and Choji. Ino sighed as she nodded. Anko sighed before she looked at Naruto. Speaking of your mother, she asked me to find you too. Something about news you need to hear about right away. Naruto nodded as he and Temari stood up. They picked up their basket and reminded Choji to return the plate to them. Later the Akimichi nodded as they left. Once the two of them walked inside, Kurenai rushed up and hugged them close. Kacchan choking, not breathing. Naruto gasped, making Kurenai set the two betrothed children down. Kuro-chan, keep at it like that and they won't learn the news. Kakashi said with a laugh. Naruto followed his father into the family room and sat down. Temari sitting down in front of him, allowing him to wrap his arms around her and pull her in close to his chest. Naruto, Temari, we have some great news. The doctor has informed us that in about 7 months we can expect another member of the Haddock family. Kakashi said. It took the kids a few seconds before Naruto smiled. I'm going to be an Ai-san. Both Haddock adults nodded, making Naruto's smile grow. Temari was happy as well. Is it a boy or a girl? We won't know that for quite some time, Temari. Kurenai said as she placed a hand on her belly with a smile. This also means that we're going to turn what was originally Temari's room into a nursery for the baby. But before we do that, something else needs to be done. Kakashi said as he reached into the pouch behind his back and pulled out 2 strips of gray paper. This is chakra paper. Can either of you tell me what it's used for? It's made from a tree which is constantly fed with chakra, and when a shinobi kunoichi channels their chakra into it, the reaction tells you which element affinity they have. Temari said. If it bursts into flames you have the fire element, if it crinkles in itself you have lightning element, if it dampens you have water element, turns to dust if you have earth, and spits in the middle if you have wind. Naruto finished. Well said, both of you. So since I started teaching you how to channel your chakra, I think it would be best to see which possible affinities you two have. Affinities? Naruto asked. It's very possible to have more than one affinity with elements. It's even possible to learn other affinities. Like you do with your eye? Temari asked. Correct again. My natural affinity is lightning, hence Chidori. Both nodded, having already seen what an element jutsu could do. Now time to see what I or your Jounin sensei would be teaching you. Kakashi said as he offered the paper to the two of them. Temari and Naruto took the paper. You first, Tima-chan. Naruto said with a smile, making Temari smile as she focused her chakra into the paper, which almost instantly split down the middle. Wind isn't surprising, Kakashi said, then was a little surprised when the paper grew damp and started to drip water. Water, however, is a surprise. Kakashi said, making Temari nod. Your turn, Naru-kun. Naruto nodded as he focused his chakra and watched as the paper split just like Temari's did. Was all Kakashi said before the paper crinkled in itself. Wind and lightning. Interesting combination. You two share the same main affinity but have complementary secondary affinities. Ones that strengthen each other. Kakashi said. Naruto and Temari nodded and smiled at each other. Looks like Azuma is going to have his hands full with you two. I can handle Naruto's lightning training and I'll have to find someone that can help Temari with water. Does this also mean we'll start Kinjutsu? Naruto asked excitedly, making Kakashi laugh a little. Yes, Naruto. Actually, I have something special for you both. Kakashi said as he walked out of the living room, then returned moments later with 2 boxes. Naruto, you first. Naruto opened his box to see a sword that was shaped like a fang. Oh wow. This is Jiji-san's blade. Naruto said, picking up the scabbard-covered sword. The very same. I think he would have wanted you to have it since I never use it. Kakashi said as Naruto ran up to him and hugged him close. Thank you too, San. Kakashi smiled at his son. Your turn, Temari. Naruto turned and watched as his wife-to-be opened her box, which was slightly longer than his. Temari opened her box and pulled out an Ajinata. The shaft was made of black wood. Wow. Temari said. Both of these weapons are specially made chakra blades. They allow you to channel your chakra to sharpen the weapon, but that comes later. Now I want the two of you to always carry these weapons when you leave this house so you get used to the weight, and at some point in the future, we'll add an addition weapon from when your opponents get too close for your weapons, for if you don't have enough room to use the weapons effectively. The next day both Naruto and Temari walked to the academy, Naruto with Inshimtakina Kiba, striking Fang, on his back, and Temari with her Naginata in a cloth cover. It didn't take long for Tenten to take notice of the weapons and talk about both weapons with their owners. I'm glad I'll finally have a couple sparring partners with Kinjutsu. Tenten said, sounding ecstatic at the idea. So you'll help us learn our weapons? Naruto said, more then asked. Of course. I'm always willing to help a friend. Tenten said, smiling as she walked into her year's class. The only ones unhappy about the new weapons were Sasuke, who still hadn't gotten over the defeat Naruto had handed him 3 years ago, and by extension a pink-hair banshee named Sakura Hando. Sakura along with many other kunoichi were stalker-like after the young Uchiha. The only ones not impressed were Ino, Hinata, Temari, and of course Tenten. 3 mainly because of the arrogant way the Uchiha carried himself, thinking just because he was an Uchiha the world belonged to him, and Temari because she only had eyes for Naruto. However, that didn't stop Sasuke from being a complete jackass to Temari and Naruto. Every time either one or both of them outperformed him, he took it way too personally. The way they saw it, Sasuke hated that anyone could beat him at anything because he had never let his father's lessons that the Uchihas were superior to anyone go. Although Naruto had no trouble putting Sasuke in his place at times. So too San had us use chakra paper yesterday. Naruto said to his friend. Shikamaru looked up at that. Which ones do you two have? Hima-chan and I both have wind affinities. I also have a water affinity while Nerukan has lightning. Temari said. Nice combination. The Nara heir said. So what about you guys? No clue. Was the answer all the friends gave, making Naruto sigh. You guys shouldn't rely on those family techniques so much, they become a crutch after so many generations. Naruto said. Shikamaru looked thoughtful, then nodded. Wouldn't hurt. Sweet, so we look into it after school. Naruto asked his friend, who all nodded. So what news did your mom and dad need to give you too? Ino asked, making Naruto slap his forehead. I forgot. I'm going to be an Ai-san. Naruto announced to his friends, who all were surprised and said that was great. Well, except Kiba, who said I feel sorry for you. Naruto laughed at his brother in all but blood. The day's class passed quickly. The group gathered together at the Haddock house, gathering around each other as Naruto produced the chakra paper for his friends to try. Who's first? Naruto asked as Neji sighed and grabbed the paper, only for half of it to turn to dust and hit the floor, then the rest burst into flame. Earth and fire for Neji. Naruto said. The group all went through slimier things. Okay, final count is Temari wind and water, Naruto wind and lightning, Neji earth and fire, Tenten fire and wind, Hinata water and earth, Choji fire and earth, Ino fire and water, Shino lightning and fire, Shikamaru water and fire, finally Kiba fire and earth. Wow, that's a lot of fire element. Naruto said, making his friends nod. Well, it is the land of fire. Shikamaru said, making a few friends laugh. So now instead of just focusing on family techniques, we can all learn something new. That way we surprise our enemies. All of them will expect you to use only the family-taught fighting abilities. Imagine their surprise when you hit them with an element jutsu. Naruto said, making the group nod. Chapter 6. Graduation and team placement. The years since learning about his little sister had pasted fast for Naruto Haddock, however he didn't mind it until she started getting clingy with him. Temari, however, found it cute when little Kayaki, named after Kakashi and Kurenai's favorite actress, would latch onto Naruto's leg every time he came home from the academy. Kayaki, unlike her brother, had silver hair, but like her brother she didn't have their mother's eyes. Kayaki loved running around, especially with Hinata's little sister Hanabi. The two were inseparable. Instead of getting jealous of the attention Kayaki got from their parents, Naruto would just smile and accept his sister. Nai-san. Wani-chan. Kayaki called out as Naruto and Temari walked up to the younger area or kindergarten area. Naruto and Temari were going to walk Kayaki home. Naruto kneeled down and hugged his sister with a smile on his face. Did you have a good day? Yeah, Hanabi-chan and I had a blast. Well, good. What did you learn today? Reading, writing, and shuriken throwing. Very important skills to have. Temari said as she held Naruto's hand. Speaking of Hanabi, Naruto said as a smaller version of Hinata walked over towards them. Hello Naruto-san, Temari-chan. How are you, Hanabi? Naruto asked. I am well, thank you. Ready to go? Temari asked. It had become a normal thing for both Naruto and Temari to walk the girls home, or for Hinata, Neji, and Tenten too. Tenten was something close to a second big sister to Kayaki, plus Tenten was one of the few people that helped Kayaki keep her mask in place. A couple kids got curious about what was under her mask. The day Kayaki was born, Anko had tried to get there to see the youngest Haddock's face, only for her efforts to be in vain when she looked into the nursery and saw a mask-wearing little girl. Not another one. Anko had cried out in exasperation. Kayaki was a big hit with all the families and her brother's friends. Temari and the girls thought she was adorable, while the guys saw someone that was important to their friend and all silently vowed to keep her safe. Naruto smiled as Temari took his hand in hers and they walked to the Hyuga compound. Oh, thank you Nai-san for helping me with shuriken practice. No problem, Yuki-chan. How did you do? I'm tied with Hanabi-chan for top Kunoichi so far. And who's got top shinobi? Temari asked. Konohamaru Sarutobi. Hanabi said. Well, Kayaki looked upset by that. What's wrong, Yuki-chan? Temari asked. Baka likes to brag that he's going to take the position of Hokage from his grandfather by challenging him to a fight. Naruto shook his head and sighed. I called it. Temari nodded as they continued to walk. After a few feet Naruto stopped. You can come out now, Sarutobi-san. Naruto said, looking behind him to see a box-shaped rock following them. The three girls' sweat drooped at the sight. Ha, just what I'd expect from my rival. A kid's voice said, making Naruto palm his face. Not another one. He groaned internally. The cloud of smoke followed the child's words, then the sound of coughing and wheezing. Too much gunpowder. Naruto sighed as a little boy wearing a helmet-like hat and a large blue scarf around his neck appeared. And why am I your rival? Naruto asked. Your Wani-chan said you were the best besides your Aka-chan and Two-san. I want to be the strongest, so I need a powerful rival. I've already got a crazed rival, I don't need a second. Naruto said. Meanwhile in the training grounds a green spandex-wearing boy sneezed. Besides, it's easy to find Jiji-san's weakness. Naruto said, making the three kids look at him in surprise. Once you find it, I'll help train you to challenge him. Naruto said, turning away from the kid, taking his future wife, younger sister, and sister's best friend with him. Is it really that easy to defeat the Hokage, Nai-san? Kayaki asked. Both Jiji and Tusan have the same weakness, it's called Icha Icha. Naruto said, making Temari glare momentarily at the idea. Once Konohamaru figures that out, then he's ready enough to be given some stealth training. Naruto said, making the girls look at him. Jiji-san constantly keeps a copy with him. If Konohamaru can find it and steal it, then he has the makings of a fine infiltration and retrieval nin. Naruto explained, making all three young women ghetto looks on their faces. Once the group had dropped Hanabi off at the compound, the three Haddocks, even though they weren't married, yet everyone already called Temari a Haddock, arrived home to see Kurenai and Kakashi relaxing and drinking tea. Hey Ka-chan, Tusan. Naruto and Kayaki called yo. Their father said while their mother waved as she sipped her tea. Ready for tomorrow you two? Kurenai asked the two eldest children, making them nod. Tomorrow will be too easy. Henge clones and replacement, it's almost like they want everyone to grow weak. Naruto said, making the parents look thoughtful. Ready to wow them Naruto? Kakashi asked later, making Naruto smile. Naruto, while having excellent chakra control, had just too much for regular clones, so Kakashi and Kurenai agreed that the only way was to teach him the shadow clone jutsu. After all, the academy just wanted a clone jutsu, it didn't matter which one they got. Temari was trained in it too, but unlike her fiancé, she could only make one or two, whereas Naruto could create his own army. I have a feeling the council is going to try something. Naruto said, looking at his father, making him nod. They are adamant that Sasuke get the royal treatment, which means they're going to force me to train him, but at least the other two positions are open to me. Kakashi hated the fact that the civilian council tried so hard to make life so good for Sasuke Uchiha. Who knows what that brat would be like if Itachi hadn't have stopped his father. Kakashi thought it didn't help that Danzo, the old war hawk of Konoha, would sometimes like to look at Naruto. The mere fact that he showed interest was greatly disturbing to Kakashi and Kurenai. What's worse was when Naruto was 3 and Danzo made his first attempt to take Naruto away from them. If it hadn't have been for Asuma, Guy, and the Inshikacho trio putting a stop to it, they were sure Danzo would now have a Haddock on his hidden root Anbu teams, and who knows what might have happened to Temari. The family enjoyed a quiet night in which involved Naruto and Kayaki dodging their auntie Anko and hanging with Asuma when he followed Anko. Although she tried to act like her usual self, Anko didn't fool anyone. So when did you two get together? Kurenai asked. Anko blushed a little. About 3 weeks ago. Asuma said with a smile as he wrapped his arm around Anko's waist. Anko still had a slight blush on her face, but she smiled as well and leaned into Asuma. All the Haddocks smiled. Anko wasn't always able to find someone that actually cared about her because of her past as Orochimaru's apprentice, and the way she dressed didn't really help, but from the way she looked at Asuma and he looked at her, there had been no miscommunications about each other's intentions. While Kakashi wanted to desperately tease Anko after her many years of doing the same when he and Kurenai got together, the look his wife gave him promised pain. Asuma also wanted to talk with Naruto and Temari. I'll start teaching you two how to manipulate wind chakra the day after tomorrow. Naruto and Temari smiled and were excited at the idea. Kurenai had insisted that they wait till they were out of the academy before they learned elemental jutsu. She sweetened the pot by offering to teach them anything of their choice. Naruto had asked about storage seals, while Temari learned a low-level genjutsu. Although Naruto had Kurenai for a mother, genjutsu was out of his reach thanks to his massive chakra reserves. Kakashi had also decided to help them in the future by placing a seal on them that blocked the Sharingan effects, especially when Sasuke became their enemy. When the couple went to sleep that night, they were both excited for tomorrow. After the exam, they would finally be a shinobi and Kunoichi of the Leaf. Temari snuggled into Naruto's chest, allowing her to listen to his heartbeat, something she liked to do when they slept. She found the sound soothing and helped her fall asleep to her personal lullaby and the smell of desert flowers. The next morning found the future husband and wife sitting in the classroom with all their classmates and friends, minus those a year older than them, and of course their major headaches. The pink banshee and the emo prince, as everyone calls them, the banshee or Sakura as her mother calls her, liked to yell at Naruto when refused to give in to Sasuke's demands for a sparring match. Sasuke still wanted to fight Naruto to prove that he was better. After a while, he decided to channel his drive to become Rookie of the Year. Alright, everyone settle down and we can begin. Their proctor Iruka said, making everyone sit before he could use his demon head jutsu on them. As he handed out a written test, Naruto noticed that his and Temari's papers had genjutsu on them, both dispelled them and got to work. Alright, let's head outside for the next test. Iruka said once he had the papers back. Everyone lined up and followed the Chunin. Once outside, Iruka began the throwing test to see who had the best aim. Naruto won that test, making Sasuke boil, while Temari was the best Kunoichi. The test went from there to jutsu, genjutsu, finally ninjutsu was last and going to be done one at a time. As Naruto was called, he caught the instructor Mizuki hand as he moved to pat him on the back. Iruka-sensei, I believe there is a chakra seal of some kind on Mizuki team's hand. Mizuki was surprised at being caught and Iruka was appalled by this action after he confirmed Naruto's suspicion. Mizuki was taken away by Anbu for trying to sabotage the students. Iruka then had the students they had tested before Naruto to go again and learned that more than half of them should never had passed, while some would have passed with flying colors. Eventually Naruto passed, and waiting for Temari wearing his headband with pride having earned it, he was happy to see his friends pass as well, and as Temari came out wearing her headband as a necklace they walked out of the academy. Naruto and Temari were surprised to see Kakashi, Kurenai, Anko, and Asuma waiting for them. So I hear congratulations are needed for not only passing, but for capturing a spy. Kakashi said as a statement more than a question. Naruto caught Mizuki as he put Charka suppression seals or Charka enhancement seals on students. Well then Naruto, you gave me a new toy for the week, thank you so much. Anko said with a smile. Naruto smiled as well, you're welcome Auntie Anko. Well, I say this is cause for celebration. Asuma said as they walked away from the academy and headed towards Naruto's favorite place, while stopping to pick up some dango for Anko and Temari. After Ichiharas, the two were happy to show off their headbands to Kayaki and Hanabi that afternoon, after changing the cloth from blue to black, that is. Nai-san, is it true what they're saying? I need to know what they're saying first. Did you really catch a spy? Kayaki asked, bouncing with excitement, making Naruto smile. He was more like a saboteur than a spy. Temari said, making the two girls look confused. What's that? The man I helped expose was trying to hurt the village by helping the weak pass and the strong fail. So he was trying to weaken our shinobi forces? Hanabi asked. That's correct. Temari said, making the Hyuga smile. The group passed the time, and once they arrived home to see the four adults sitting in the living room. Nai-san, can I wear your headband? Kayaki asked Naruto, and as Naruto was about to say no, Kayaki pulled out the big guns. Naruto's kryptonite, the puppy dog eye no jutsu. Naruto shivered as he tried to fight the jutsu. Come on Naruto, you can do it. Asuma said, trying to help. Temari smiled as she walked over and kneeled down next to Kayaki. Oh come on Naruto, let Yuki-chan wear the headband. Temari activated her own puppy dog eye no jutsu, but added a little pout to it, knowing Naruto found it cute. Naruto froze. They got him, Kakashi said, making Asuma shake his head along with the Haddock patriarch, while the matriarch and Anko smiled as Naruto reached up and untied the band and handed it to Kayaki, who squealed with joy and tied the headband on. Once released, Naruto breathed deeply and leaned forward. Tima-chan, Naruto said in a sweetly voice, making said girl leap, you realize I was just helping my fellow woman, right? Temari asked as she slowing back away. Naruto I smiled as he walked towards her. Yeah, I know, Naruto said, his tone of voice not changing as he continued to get near her, and she kept trying to back away. Naruto, Temari tried to say before Naruto charged her, making her turn and run away before he caught her on the back porch and started to tickle her like mad. And no. Temari cried out as Naruto tickled her, making her laugh loudly. Naruto, please stop. Temari cried out, tears building in her eyes. Are you going to turn traitor and help Kayaki over me again? Naruto asked. And not fair, Temari gasped as Naruto kept tickling her. Naruto stopped to let her catch her breath. Temari gasped, trying to breathe. Naruto, that was mean. Temari said with a little pout. Then you shouldn't have picked my sister over me. You know what that jutsu does to me. Naruto said. Temari sighed and pulled Naruto in close to her. I'm sorry, you're right, I know how much you hate it when Kayaki does that to get something from you. Temari said, looking into his eyes. Naruto sighed and pulled his mask down before giving her a quick kiss. I forgive you, but please remember this in the future. Naruto said as he fixed his mask. Temari smiled and nodded. Naruto sat back up and pulled her into his lap, allowing her to lay her head on his shoulder and look out into the night sky. You let me get farther this time. Temari said. No, you're faster than you were 2 years ago. Naruto said, making Temari smile. So who do you think our teammates will be? I don't know, as long as it's not Banshee or Emo I think we'll be fine. Naruto said with a smile. Naruto, your father and I need to leave for a bit. Watch over Kayaki until we get back. Kurenai called out from the house. Okay Ka-chan. Naruto said as the couple got up and walked back into the house. Kurenai, Kakashi, Asuma and Anko all walked into the meeting room where the other Jonin and special Jonin were gathered. The elder Sarutobi sat in a high back chair wearing his robes and hat, somewhat surprised to see Anko there with them. Welcome. As we all know, it's time to pick the new Genin teams. All of you have the right to request any student. I request Naruto, Haddock and Temari of the desert. 4 voices called out, making everyone look at the gathered friends. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighed. Why am I not surprised, the elder thought. Alright, let's hear the prospective teams you wish to build. The Hokage said, looking at the 4 in question. The council has already decided that I am to teach the Uchiha boy Sasuke, and from what I have read he is brash, arrogant, and believes that as soon as his bloodline activates he can handle anything. I need 2 students that can not only give him a challenge, but will actually be able to knock some sense into him. Who better than the students I've already started training? Kakashi said, finishing his proposal. I wish to take these 2 as well as the Inyazuka heir and train them into a guard unit. Kiba's noise and senses can be used to detect danger, plus Temari's long-range fighting ability will be helpful of stopping enemies before they get too close, not to mention Naruto's natural ability to strategize and be one of the biggest powerhouses I've ever seen. Kurenai said, making a few of her fellow Jonin nod in agreement with her assessment of their abilities. I wish to take those two along with the Hyuga heiress and use them as an infiltration unit, as Nai-chan said. Naruto is a natural strategist whose stealth is next to none, as I'm sure we all know. Anko was referring to the few pranks Naruto had been able to pull and his ability to escape everyone that pursued him. The few victims of his in the room all shivered in remembrance. Hinata's bloodline will also be able to detect possible danger, as well as Temari's supporting fighting style that works perfectly as protection to back up both Naruto and Hinata. Anko finished once again, making people nod with the idea of the students. Hiruzen was impressed with the proposal so far towards the future man and wife, then he turned to his son, who had a smile on his face as he gave his proposal. Needless to say, everyone was surprised, shocked, and greatly impressed with the idea. Asuma's proposal is granted. Hiruzen said, making everyone nod in agreement that it was the best option. While Naruto's mother, father and aunt weren't happy to not get their favorite genin, they knew the two were in good hands, even if the man was a chain smoker. A week later, Naruto, Temari and everyone else were sitting in their classroom for the last time. Today was the day they would meet their prospective Jonin sensei and team. That is, if they passed the test the Jonin were going to give, as Naruto knew his father was going to do with his team. Alright, everyone settle down, and I've informed you of the teams. Naruto felt Temari grab his hand and squeeze it hard. Temari began to worry that the two wouldn't end up on the same team and had been worried since the day after the final test. Team 7 will be Sakura Haruno, Sai. Both looked at a pale boy they barely remembered being in their class. And Sasuke Uchiha. While Sakura was cheering, Naruto and Temari breathed a sigh of relief. Your instructor is Kakashi Hatake. Iruka finished, making Naruto and Temari grimace. I feel sorry for Toussaint. Kakashi-san. Teammate will be Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburam, and Kiba Inuzuka. Your instructor is Kurenai Hatake. Iruka said, making the three in question smile at that. Team 9 is still active. The friends knew that was Neji, Tenten, and Lee's team under Guy. Team 10 is a special team that will consist of not 3, but 5 genin and 2 jonin. Everyone was surprised to hear this. It wasn't often that tradition was broken like this. Team 10 will be made of Ino Yamanaka, Choji Akimichi, Shikamaru Nara, Temari of the Desert, and Naruto Hatake. Temari let out a breath she was holding and relaxed, knowing she and Naruto were on the same team. Your instructors are Asuma Sarutobi and Yugao Yuzuki. Iruka said, then continued until he was finished. As my final announcement, the rookies of the year. Iruka paused as everyone sounded excited at the idea and waited as Iruka drew out the anticipation. Top Kunoichi Temari of the Desert. Naruto cheered for his fiancée while their friends smiled and congratulated her. Top Shinobi is a tie between Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Hatake. Temari smiled and, not caring about who was in the room, kissed Naruto, even if he was wearing a mask. Naruto returned the kiss as Temari leaned against him, not caring about the death glares they were getting, not to mention the looks of jealousy from a few girls. Shikamaru sighed, troublesome. Inside he was happy for his friend, but he knew that he and Temari will attract a lot of attention in the future, which ultimately meant more work for him. Sasuke was fuming. How did that dope tie with me for Rookie of the Year and placed on a special team with 2 Jonin teachers. Naruto noticed Sasuke from the corner of his eye and had a feeling the civilian side of the council will have a fit and demand a team change. Iruka told them to meet back in the room after lunch to meet their senseis. The group of friends gathered together. So why do you think they changed the number of teammates and senseis for you guys? Kiba asked. Most likely one of the 2 Jonin requested my proposing an interesting team and use for us. Shikamaru said, what do you mean? Ino asked. Naruto took over from there. Every Jonin sensei proposes a team and tries to express how that team is the best out of all the options, unless the council gets in the way. Example being the team Kacchan put together. Kiba, Shino, and Hinata have great potential as a tracker assassination team based on your skills, mainly Kiba's nose, Shino's bugs, and Hinata's eyes. Another example is the original in Shikacho team, capture, interrogation, and protection. Choji said, making Naruto nod. Shikaku Nara famous for his capture techniques, Inoichi Yamaka for his interrogation skills, and Chauza Akimichi for his ability to keep his teammates safe. Naruto said. All the friends nodded. Toussaint's team will be a wild card. Sai's abilities are almost a complete mystery, which was smart on his part. If Toussaint can get Kacchan to teach Banshee some Jinjutsu or get someone to teach her some medical jutsu, she could be a benefit instead of the hindrance she is now by being nothing but a fangirl. Naruto said, making the boys shiver and the girls scowl. And as much as I hate to say it, the Uchiha's ninjutsu abilities are excellent. However, Toussaint needs to knock some of the arrogant out of Sasuke before he can really do any real teaching. Naruto said, making everyone nod. Well, that explains the almost pure Taijutsu Team 9. Right, with Neji and Lee as the forerunners and Tenten as support with her skills as a weapons mistress. However, they are going to need to teach Lee more than Taijutsu before he becomes a one-trick pony. Shikamaru said, making Naruto nod. So what would our team be? Ino asked. We won't fully know till after we meet Asuma-sensei and Yuga-sensei, but if I were to take a guess, we know that you three are perfect for CIP, while Temari is a long-range support fighter and Naruto is a close to mid-range powerhouse with great Kenjutsu, Taijutsu, and Ninjutsu abilities. Better known as Utility Ninja. Utility Ninja? Temari asked. Most ninja focus on one, maybe two areas, however Naruto focuses on 3 of the 4 disciplines. Not to mention his stealth abilities rival that of his father, who was an Anbu captain at the age of 15 and stayed until he was 20. He most likely resigned when Kurenai-sensei told him about her pregnancy with Naruto. Shino said. So Naruto is basically equipped to handle any type of mission from protection detail to ascentation. Shikamaru added. As long as I have a good support team with me, which is what Tusan made Temari-chan into. Both of our Taijutsu styles work together in perfect sync, or well, once we've mastered them, our Kenjutsu works with our Taijutsu. And you also want to focus on one important fact. Asuma-sensei is the only one here who can teach Naruto-kun and I how to use our wind affinity. That by itself is most likely the biggest reason why we have this team, but again we won't know until we meet both of our sensei. Naruto added. Naruto-kun, Temari-chan, I want to thank you for helping Hanabi with her schooling. Hinata said, making both smile at her. It was fun. Heck, I think I would someday like to become a teacher. I can definitely see why Iruka loves his job. Just make sure to either make the lectures interesting or only teach a team of genin. Kiba said, making everyone laugh. Ani-san. A small voice called out, making the group turn to see Kayaki and Hanabi walked up to them. Hey, Yuki-chan. Naruto said as his little sister came and sat next to him while Hanabi sat next to her older sister. How are you, Bai-chan? I'm having a good day, Wani-chan. Hanabi said with a genuine smile. Ayaki had over time broken the walls the Hyuga Council had tried to build around Hanabi to keep her acting like a true Hyuga heiress. They weren't very happy when they got a third heir that would smile and talk freely with outsiders, and after Hyanite's death, Hiashi showed no interest in remarrying whatsoever. The day Hyanite pasted away from bloodline sickness, a rare disease that could possibly affect anyone with a bloodline, it struck fast, and there was no way to cure it. Hanabi and Hinata had almost been inconsolable until Kakashi sat down with both and told them how he lost his own mother to disease as well when he was only 8. Hinata was 10 at the time and Hanabi was 3, almost 4. It was thanks to him and the help of their friends that they were able to get through it. The sisters were never closer to one another, or Niji, who also lost a mother, but had died on a mission. The 2 heiresses of the main branch and the heir of the cadet branch of the Hyuga clan were more than cousins. Niji had become their older brother and they his little sisters. In fact, it had become a personal goal of the 2 sisters to unite the families and get rid of the Kaj bird seal placed on all cadet branch members, make them little more than slaves. Naruto and the friends sat with Kayaki and Hanabi, both asking the teams that the friends wound up on. Ayaki was surprised to hear her brother and future sister were on a special team, the first 7-man squad of Konoha Genin and Jonin. Konohamaru, did you find Jiji's weakness? Naruto asked, suddenly making everyone look to see the young Sarutobi, who hadn't even bothered to hide himself after being caught. Hi Naruto-san. Jiji's focus is around this book. Konohamaru said as he held up a familiar orange book, making the new Genin Fascifalt. Very good work. Now return it without being caught and I will train you. Hi sensei. Konohamaru said before turning and walking away. Naruto, I made him a promise. Naruto said, cutting Ino off before she could get started. Everyone there understood right away and didn't say another word. Of course, if Yuki-chan and Bai-chan were to join us, I wouldn't stop them. Naruto said, making the 2 young girls look at him in surprise, then nodded in agreement before running off to talk. Naruto-kun, you spoil them. They're the same age I was when Toussaint started my training. Besides, I'm mainly going to focus on the basics and that's about it. Also Tima-chan, I know you like the idea of those 3 being able to watch over each other as much as I do. Naruto said, making Temari look thoughtful before nodding. Everyone was once again waiting in the classroom as the door opened and closed repeatedly as Jonin came and collected their students until Naruto and Temari caught sight of a familiar messy-haired bearded chain smoker. Team 10, meet me and Yuzuki on the roof in 5 minutes. Asuma said before he vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto just grabbed Choji and Shikamaru while Temari grabbed Ino and all 5 vanished in a spiral of leaves. Asuma smirked when they had arrived via Shunshin, especially since it got a look of surprise from his fellow Jonin Yuga Yuzuki. Maybe now you see why I wanted those 2 on the team. Asuma thought as the teens all took a seat. Before we get started, let all introduce ourselves. Tells you likes and dislikes, hobbies, and finally dreams, goals. Asuma said, making the Nara heir sigh troublesome. Naruto, Temari, Ino, and Choji snickered. Why don't you go first, Nara-san? Asuma said more then asked. I'm Shikamaru Nara. I like Go, shogi, and cloud watching. I dislike loud people and too much work. My hobbies include playing Go or Shogi with Naruto here and watching the clouds. My goal is to have an average career, find a nice quiet girl, get married and raise a family and retire at a young age. Naruto and the rest of the genin all shook their heads at Shikamaru's words. Sound just like Shika. They all thought, alright you blondie. Asuma said, making the boys flinch slightly as Temari and Ino glared at Asuma. What was that? The two asked together. Oops. Asuma thought as he looked at the girls, the non-weapon carrier. Yuga said. Both girls look at the purple-haired Jonin, who had a katana on her back and a smile at the scene in front of her. My name is Ino Yamanaka. I like flowers, nature hikes, and training with my two-san. I dislike fangirls because they're an embarrassment to the word kunoichi. Amen. 6 voices called out, making her smile as she looked at her team and sensei. I also hate those that trash or hurt the environment for absolutely no reason. My hobbies include collecting and pressing flowers. My goal is to one day upstart my father and become the best Yamanaka interrogator. Asuma smiled at her response while Yuga looked impressed. Now for you, Yuga said, pointing at Temari. I'm Temari of the dessert. My likes are dessert, flowers, chocolate, training, and my fiancé Naru-kun. My dislikes are rapist and arrogant people. My hobbies are training with Kakashi-san and Naru-kun, caring for the flowers Naru-kun bought for me as a welcome gift, and spending time with my future in-laws. My goal is to one day become a great kunoichi, wife, and mother. Naruto kissed Temari's scalp, making said girl smile. Your turn, bandana head. Asuma said, looking at Choji. I'm Choji Akimichi. My likes are food and my friends. My dislikes are people who pick on others for no good reason. My hobbies include cooking meals that my friends and I can enjoy together. My goal is to one day own my own chain of barbecue restaurants in Fire Country, since the only Akimichi barbecue restaurant is here in Konoha. Naruto and Shikamaru smiled at their friend. Choji was a good person and only wanted simple things in life. And finally you. Asuma said, pointing at his godson. I'm Naruto Haddock. My likes are my fiancé Tima-chan, my family and friends, as well as training O and ramen. My dislikes are arrogant snobs, the time it takes to make ramen, those that would hurt those precious to me, and that blasted puppy dog I know jutsu. My hobbies are training in Kinjutsu, Taijutsu and Ninjutsu with my two-san and Temari-chan, playing Shogi or Go with Shikamaru, and helping my little sister with her lessons. My goal is to become a strong shinobi to protect the ones that are precious to me, as well as become a good husband, father for my and Tima-chan's future family. Naruto said, making Temari smile and laid her head on his shoulder. Very nice. Guess it's our turn now. I am Asuma Sarutobi. My likes are my girlfriend Anko, Shogi, and creating wind jutsu for the village. My dislikes are rapist and those that kill or hurt needlessly. My hobbies include shogi and not much else. My goal is to one day become a father and raise a family. Naruto and Temari were happy to hear his goal, both knowing that Anko's greatest wish was to one day carry and raise a child. Yes, I'm last. My name is Yuga Yuzuki. My likes are my friends Kurenai, Anko, and Hana. My dislikes are perverts, rapists, and those who look down on women. My hobbies include training in my sword style, spending time with my friends, and reading a good book. My goal is to one day start my own Kinjutsu dojo. Alright, now that we all know one another here, we can get started tomorrow. We will have your genin test meet at training group 10 at 9 AM. See you then. Asuma said before he and Yuga vanished in a whirlwind of leaves. Let's go check on Yuki-chan and Bai-chan. Temari said, making the group nod and stand up. They got outside in time for the younger classes to be let out. Kayaki and Hanabi ran up to the group, followed by Konohamaru. After hugging his sister, Naruto looked at the young Sarutobi. Did you complete your mission? Naruto asked. Konohamaru nodded and had a smile on his face. I added a little something to try and deter him away from that book. Naruto smiled, as did the others. Alright, the three of you have tomorrow off, right? Naruto asked, making the three nod their heads. Good. Meet me tomorrow at training ground 10 at 7 AM. Hi sensei. Konohamaru said before he left. Hanabi and Kayaki were excited at the idea of training with Naruto and barely talked about anything else. The team went their own way, Ino to her family's flower shop, Choji and Shikamaru to the barbecue joint, while Naruto and Temari made sure Hanabi got home. As they approached the Hyuga compound, they were happy and sad to see Team Guy as well. Niji smiled as he took Hanabi inside. After Naruto and Lee did their usual greeting, which got a laugh out of Hanabi, and Naruto's usual decline of a challenge which he learned affected Lee and Guy more than ignoring them. Tenten smiled and started talking with Kayaki and walking with the Haddock family. Tenten Nichan, are you going to be helping Ani-san train Hanabi, Konohamaru, and me? I haven't had time to ask her yet, Oyado. Naruto said while Tenten looked at him in surprise. I just helping them with the basics and the fundamentals of teamwork. Naruto said, making Tenten smile and nod. Maybe when you're a little older, Kayaki-chan. After all, your brother and sister didn't start to learn to wield a weapon till after they were 8 years old. Tenten answered Kayuki, who looked thoughtful before shrugging and letting it go, but for some reasons Naruto and Temari were suspicious of the action between the two. So how are your teams looking? Asuma asked Kakashi and Kurenai as they sat in Anko's favorite dango place, while said woman munched away on her favorite food. Not so good. I got an Avenger, a fangirl, and a creep that likes to piss people off. Kakashi said looking down. I'm a little better off. Shino and Hinata are quiet while Kiba is loud, but the three already know and seem to be able to work together. Kurenai said. What's this rumor I hear of Naruto training my nephew? Asuma asked Kakashi. That's a new one on me. Kakashi said. And then I think tomorrow will produce an interesting show. Anko said with a devious smirk. The next morning Team 10 was at training ground 10-4 of the 5 genin were sitting by the tree while Naruto stood in front of 3 academy students. There were 3 posts behind them. Alright, before I do anything you have to pass a little test. Naruto said as he reached into a pouch on his black flak jacket. He pulled out 2 bells both on a ribbon to pass. You must get one of these bells from me, the ones that do will get trained, while the other will get no help of any kind from me at any point in the future. Naruto said. All 3 younger children looked at the bells, their eyes full of determination. Shikamaru looked at them, then noticed Kiba, Hinata, and Shino arriving and sitting down. Hanabi told me about this last night and I got curious. Hinata explained. Her teammates nodded in agreement. Soon Team Guy arrived as well, Neji giving the same explanation, no one bothering to look up and see Guy, Kakashi, Kurenai, Asuma, Anko, and Yuga watching. Naruto tied the bells to his waist. Come at me with the intent to kill or you will fail. You have until this alarm sounds. Naruto said, pulling out a scroll making a clock appear. Naruto set it down in front of him. Ready? Naruto asked, seeing all 3 nod go. Naruto called out. All 3 ran off into the woods as fast as they could. Well, they have stealth, I'll give them that, but how good are they at hiding? Naruto asked as he started to look around only to duck under a volley of shuriken. Nice try, Yuki-chan. Naruto said as his sister charged him, knowing she had given away her position. Naruto pulled out a book and started to read First Lesson to Jutsu. Naruto said as he blocked his sister's jab and kept at it until he jumped to avoid Hanabi's surprise attack. Nice try. Naruto said as the girls continued to try until they heard Konohamaru now. Shadow Shuriken Jutsu. Konohamaru called after throwing 3 shuriken. Since his reserves were so small he could only make 30 illusionary shuriken while the girls dodged out of the way. Once the throwing stars hit Naruto, he was surrounded by smoke. Once it vanished they only saw a log. Never let your enemy get behind you. Naruto called out, making Konohamaru look behind him, but before Naruto could take advantage of it, a kunai made him dodge, giving Konohamaru a chance to escape. Naruto spoke again. Next lesson Genjutsu. Tima-chan, if you please. Making the 3 realize that Temari had been making hand signs covering their world in darkness, however Kayuki was ready as she made the ram sign Kai. She called out, seeing her brother had vanished. She sighed as she helped her team get out of the Genjutsu. Third lesson Ninjutsu. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Naruto called out, making 2 clones appear and rushed the 3 of them. The 3 students fought until Konohamaru threw down a smoke bomb, giving them cover to get away. This is a most youthful battle. Lee called out, making everyone but those fighting and Guy sweat drop. They seem to have a grasp on the true purpose of this test. Kakashi said with a smile as he watched his children. Naruto waited before he jumped out of the way of a strike from a bow staff in Konohamaru's hands. Naruto drew his blade and started a weapons fight with the young Sarutobi. So Jiji has been teaching you his fighting style, has he? It was a statement, not a question. Tenten watched the fight with stars in her eyes. That's the sword the White Fang used. Tenten said. Naruto then had to jump away as his sister appeared with tonfa in both her hands. Kurenai and Kakashi were surprised until they heard a nervous laugh below them. Tenten, Temari asked, demanded. I couldn't help myself. She saw them in the family shop and showed so much interest that I couldn't help but offer some training. Tenten said. Naruto dodged the 2 students fighting, both of them waiting for Hanabi to join them until a blur ran towards him, making him jump and avoided as the alarm sounded. Well done all 3 of you. Naruto said as Hanabi slowed and showed she had both bells. Now the question is, who gets the bells? Naruto asked. Give them to the girls, they earned it. Konohamaru said. No, my team should get them. I can always train with Toussaint when he isn't busy. Kayuki said. No, you 2 get them. I can train with my clan. Hanabi said. You know what? Forget it. Konohamaru said as he took both bells and threw them on the floor in front of Naruto. We're a team, we succeed together, we fail together. Konohamaru said, making the 2 girls nod in agreement. Are you sure that's what you want? Yes. All 3 said together. Well then I have only one thing to say, you all pass. Naruto said, making every rookie look at him in surprise. Not only did you complete your objective, but you showed that your team is what you found to be important, not just getting the bells. That's what it means to be on a team, fight together, care for one another, become a second family if you will. So because we fought together instead of alone we passed? Konohamaru asked. Naruto motioned that they follow him. The three followed close, as did everyone else. Once they reached a familiar stone, he turned back to them. "What is this monument?" Naruto asked. The three looked at it. "This is the memorial stone. The name of those who lost their lives in the service to Konoha are here," Konohamaru said, making Naruto nod. "Almost every person on this stone died to protect their team as well as the village. Shikomo Haddock is a perfect example." "Gigi-san?" Kayaki asked. Naruto nodded. "Our grandfather decided to risk his last mission by abandoning it to save his allies from death and torture. He lost his life, but every single member of his team made it home. You showed that you are willing to make similar sacrifices for the better of your team. Know this: those that break the rules are scum, but those that would betray their teammates are worse than scum. When outside these walls, your team is the only ones that will support you, and you should treat them with the same respect and kindness as you would your own family." Naruto finished the lecture, making the three students nod. The sound of clapping made everyone look to see the Jonin sensei. Kakashi, Kurenai, Yugao, and Anko were clapping while the rest were smiling at the group. "Very nicely taught, Naru-chan," Kurenai said as the Jonin jumped down. Naruto smiled and scratched the back of his head in a similar manner of his father. Kakashi walked up and rubbed Naruto's head, messing up his hair even more. "That's my boy," Kakashi said, pride clear in his voice, making Naruto smile at him. "Thank you, Aka-chan." "Otu-san. Barely a genin and already got a team of students, huh, Naruto?" Anko teased slightly, making a few laugh. Naruto smiled. "Well, he defiantly made the lesson more interesting than Iruka-sensei," Kiba said, making the group laugh. "Alright, you three, will pick up again as soon as possible, but for now you're dismissed. However, I would like all three of you to start the tree climbing exercise with your parents or an adult nearby," Naruto said, making the three academy students nod. "Hi, sensei," they called out, making Naruto scratch the back of his head again. "If this is how you teach, I can't wait to see what you'll do when you get your own official team," Asuma said. "Thanks, Asuma-sensei. Alright, I've got to go and meet my student. See you at home, Naruto." "Temari. Teammate, we should be going as well." "As should we, my youthful students. I feel greatly inspired after such a grand lesson," Guy said, leading his team away. Asuma and Yugao looked at Naruto. "I can see why you wanted to name him team leader," Yugao said, making Naruto blush slightly at the praise. "Alright team, it's time for the test," Asuma said. Chapter 7: Wave, Training, and Haku. The team's test turned out to be a simple capture mission. They worked together to capture and hold down the Nukenin, played by Asuma, and captured, interrogated, and returned with their prisoner. They learned that day that was the main purpose of the second generation in Shikacho team, the addition of Naruto, and Temari made them into a capture interrogation guard assault team as well, with a dash of assassination. Asuma had convinced the Hokage of letting the 5 genin on the same team with this very purpose in mind, and Yugao was here to help train them in Kenjutsu, since that was a big part of Naruto and Temari's arsenal. The day was going to be their first mission. Naruto, Temari, and Shikamaru knew it was going to be some lowly D-rank mission, or as Naruto liked to call them, chore missions, since most were just jobs civilians were too lazy to do themselves. Team 10, let us see what we had for you. Let's see some of. There is walking some of the Inuzuka dogs. A council member needs a fence taken care of. Aha, there is the perfect one for you," the elder Hokage said as he handed Yugao a scroll, who read it and froze before walking out of the room. "Team, you are about to meet every team's worst nightmare." "You can't mean that, monster?" Asuma asked in a panicked voice. "Yep, retrieving Tora the cat." "How hard can catching a cat be?" Choji asked. 2 hours, 30 minutes, and 45 seconds later. "At that damn cat," Wolf yelled as they charged through the village marketplace following a reddish-brown blur. He, Bandana Raven, and Flower were chasing the demon cat through the area until they were able to lead it towards a forest area where it suddenly paused. "Shadow possession. Success," Shadow said as the cat's shadow veered off to the left slightly. "Alright, now we've got you." Wolf slightly fumed as he grabbed a scroll his mother had given him, telling him that he would need it. He finally opened it and say the kanji for cat carrier and realized she had planned ahead for him. Wolf unsealed the cage and grabbed the scarf of the cat's neck before Shadow dropped the jutsu and allowed him to shove the monster into the carrier, locking it before it could try and run. Flower tapped the headset on her left ear twice. "This is Flower, we've got the target. Can you confirm?" Wolf here. "Do you know any other cat that can run us all ragged?" Raven here. "I concur with Wolf." "Troublesome." Shadow here. "Cat has the ribbon on left ear." Bandana here. "We've also got it contended to reduce chance of escape." "Well done team, meet a tower for debriefing." "Out." "Understood, meet a tower out." Wolf called into his headset before then jumped away to reach the Hokage tower sooner. "I have never once before wanted to cause an animal bodily harm before," Flower said, glaring at the carrier. "Ahem, sister," Raven said, making Wolf laugh as they arrived. Asuma looked at the disheveled look all of his genin had. Flower got the worst of it from the look of the scratches on her face. "I hate cats," Wolf Naruto said as he handed the carrier to Asuma, who smiled. "Think of it as a rite of passage that all shinobi take. It's stupid and troublesome," Shadow Shikamaru said. "Agreed." Bandana Choji said while Flower Ino and Raven Tamari nodded. Now you know why everyone hates this cat. Yugao said, a slight smile on her face until she felt the glares of her team. Are you sure it's even a cat? Choji asked. I would swear this thing is an animal partner like Akamaru for Kiba. Naruto added, getting a grunt from Shikamaru. I wouldn't be surprised if that thing did have chakra like Akamaru. Tamari said, making her team laugh slightly at the idea. 3 weeks later, Yugao and Asuma kept Team 10 busy not with just the usual D-rank missions, but with training. Naruto helped whenever he could to help his team. Choji now wore training weights at the encouragement of Naruto and Shikamaru in order to help with his taijutsu. In fact, it actually helped with his big bone problem to where he now looked more fit than before. Think of something close to the skinny version after his battle with his Sound 4 opponent. At Naruto's encouragement, Ino had also started to learn some medical ninjutsu since her control was better than his or Choji's, and Tamari was already on her way to being a decent ninjutsu specialist. All of them were also learning a weapon, or in the Haddock and future Haddock's case a secondary weapon. Yugao thought it would be a great idea to had something extra just in case. Choji now walked around with his Zanpakuto, An. Renji's blade on his back. The heavy blade was perfect for his strength, and the strange design was enough to make many not want to engage in a Kenjutsu battle with Choji. Ino was being taught to use a Kusarigama, something Yugao thought would work best for the young woman since it was light and fast. Shikamaru was learning to use a Jan sword, An Sokka's sword from Avatar. Well, he found the lessons troublesome, even he couldn't deny the effects on his strength and stamina. Tamari was learning to use 2 metal battle fans, much like her birth village would use 1 giant fan to create large burst of wind. Naruto was learning to weld a pair of trench knives just like Asuma's, as well as Asuma's fighting style, with said knives. Wind chakra exercises were added for both wielders. The first thing they learned was how to cut a leaf with just wind chakra. The time cut down, thanks to the shadow clone jutsu. Their outfits had changed as well. Tamari still liked to wear battle kimonos, but the designs had changed and now all of them had a black or purple raven on the back, depending on the color of the kimono. She also wore weights on her wrist and legs. They weren't anything crazy, but they helped. Her cloth-covered Naginata was always with her, while her fans were closed and tucked in her kimono. Ino had ditched the purple bodysuit she had worn through most of the academy and now wore a more flowing outfit of a purple halter top, an open-leg skirt and black leggings. She would also wear a dark blue vest that she kept unzipped and black sandals. Shikamaru didn't change much. He still wore the same type of pants and mesh armor, but his shirt had changed to a black with white stripes long-sleeved shirt. Other than that, and his sword on his back, nothing really changed. Toji now wore dark blue shinobi pants and sandals. He still wore a black shirt with the Akimichi, but it was covered mostly by a new cameo trench coat, not to mention the belt-like strap across his chest, holding his Zanpakuto to his back. Naruto didn't change much either. He still wore black pants and sandals, however his shirt and mask were now dark red, the same red of his mother's eyes, not to mention the sliver shin and arm guards from his father's Anbu days, each concealed a gravity seal he applied with help from his dad. He was also big enough to finally wear the trench coat that his auntie Anko had bought him when she had heard the news about his engagement, and let's not forget his grandfather's sword that was strapped to his back and 2 weapons pouches on his legs. The day marked a very special day because of one very important fact. Team 10 and Team 7, nice of you all to come. Now let's see what we have for you. There is. Digi, please stop right there. Naruto said, making the Hokage look up at him. He's right to Sen, the team is ready for a C-ranked mission. Asuma said after taking a long drag on his cigarette. Asuma-sen, I highly doubt Iruka, who was the Chunin assigned to help give out missions, started to say until Naruto interrupted. Digi, I make you a deal so we never have to take a D-ranked mission again. Everyone looked at the genin all with different reactions. Asuma and Yugao were curious as to what he could propose. Kakashi was curious as well, but also had a slight smile. The rest of the genin looked like they wanted to know what was so valuable to secure such a feat, well, except for Shikamaru and Sasuke, both of whom just looked at Naruto with looks of irritation. Oh ho, and what do I get out of it? The Hokage asked with a grin on his face. A secret to defeating your greatest enemy, paperwork. Naruto said with an eye smile. The room grew silent as the words were processed until, in a feat that surprised everyone, Hiruzen Sarutobi moved so fast he looked like a white and red blur and gripped Naruto's arms, making the boy lean back. It looked like the only thing keeping Naruto up was the Hokage. Tell me the secret. The old man demanded, and I'm tears running down his face. Conditions. First, my team never gets a D rank ever again unless we willingly choose so. Done. Every time both senseis agree to it, you buy us lunch dinner. Done. And finally. The day I can get a genin team, it is to be built of Konohamaru Sarutobi, Hanabi Huiga, and Kayaki Haddock. Now tell me. 2 words, Jiji. Shadow clones. Naruto said with an eye smile at the complete look of shock on Hiruzen's face. Hiruzen let Naruto go, who promptly hit the ground with a grunt. The Hokage was shaky as he walked towards the desk. Dusan. Asuma asked as Naruto picked himself up. Hiruzen placed his hands on the desk and looked down Baka. The Hokage yelled before smashing his head on the desk. Everyone was so surprised that they didn't know how to react. Baka was called out again as Hiruzen hit his head a second time. Asuma, Yugao and Kakashi reacted after that one and grabbed the elder by his arms and wrapped an arm around his front to stop his from hitting his head a third time. All those years. All that paperwork. And the answer was right in front of me. The Hokage yelled out, making everyone sweat drop as he cried like a little girl. Once the man had gotten himself under control again, he reached into the C-rank mission scrolls and opened one. Here's a nice and easy one: escort and protect the bridge builder Tazuna as he completes a bridge he's building in his home country. Wave country. Okage-sama, I would request that my team come along as backup. Escort missions always have a way of escalating higher in the field. Kakashi said. The Hokage looked at Asuma and Yugao, both of whom just shrugged and nodded. Alright, permission granted. Team 10 will lead in this mission, however, should there be any big trouble Kakashi will take lead since he has the most experience. Send in the client. The door opened, everyone but Sasuke, Sakura and Sai caught the overflowing smell of cheapsake. What's this? I paid for ninja, not children. Those three look like they'd run at the first sign of trouble. Tazuna drunkenly said. Sasuke charged at him only to be held back by Kakashi. Tazuna looked at Team 10. Now this group, however, is what I paid for. Though why anyone would wear kimonos like that is just plain. Tazuna paused as he felt metal graze his cheek and warm liquid run down it. Watch what you say about my fiancé. Naruto said in a sweet-sounding tone while he smiled at Tazuna. Behind Naruto, however, seemed to glow red and black when a white and red fox monster-like mask appeared behind his head. Oni mask. A few screamed in their heads. Kakashi smiled as well. You've been getting lessons from Kuro-chan, haven't you? Well, she is my mother. Naruto said before he turned back to the Hokage. How long is the mission estimated to last? 2, maybe 3 weeks. Right. Is there anything else, Jiji? No, you're dismissed. Meet Yugao and me at the gate in 15. Hi, sensei. The team called out before they left. Once they were out of the tower, Naruto reached above him and caught a kunai. You forgot that, sensei. Konohamaru's voice said from a window above them. Thank you, Konohamaru. When I get back, remind me to start teaching the water walking exercise. Hi, sensei. Konohamaru said before he closed the window and left. Tree walking, replacement, henge, clones, and now water walking. Are you sure they aren't your genin team already? Ino joked, making the group laugh. Naruto smiled as well. His team, as they like to call Konohamaru, Hanabi, and Kayaki, would everyone once in a while approach Naruto for training. Naruto insisted on them mastering the first chakra control exercise before he did anything else. Hanabi had been the first to get it and had helped her teammates as well. After that, he focused on the basic ninjutsu for the academy and even helped a little with their taijutsu, and he wasn't alone either. Everyone once in a while a fellow genin would help Naruto with different training. When Tenten helped Shiran through some weapons drills with the three of them after Hanabi had been convinced to wear claw gauntlets, the three were now a year ahead of the rest of their classmates and were expected to graduate quickly. Team 10 dispersed and returned to their homes to grab their storage scrolls to seal away their supplies instead of carrying backpacks. They all arrived at the gate with 3 minutes to spare. Eventually everyone else arrived, well except for Kakashi and their client. Naruto sighed as he got irritated looks from Team 7. Don't look at me like that, I'm on time. Naruto said. Sai gave a creepy smile and walked up to Naruto. Can I help you? Naruto asked when Sai got really close to his face. How does a less man like you look like he could kick some ass? Sai asked, making Naruto grow a tick mark, as did Temari. Well, she had never seen it, she knew about Naruto's eyes. Instead of causing a scene, Naruto grabbed Sai's collar and walked into the forest away from everyone's eyes. Kakashi and Tazuna arrived to see all but 2 of the group there. Where are Naruto and Sai? Kakashi asked. Everyone pointed towards the forest, making him look at them in confused when a blast of Kai hit the air and a paler than usual Sai came out of the forest walking slowly towards his team. Naruto walked out a minute later and rejoined his team. Naruto, Kakashi started to ask before Naruto interrupted, just settling an issue peacefully. Making Kakashi sigh. Alright team, let's head out. Team 7 take point while Team 10 takes the sides and back. Asuma called out, making Sai, Sakura and Sasuke start walking while Tazuna walked behind them flanked by Choji and Naruto, while Temari, Ino and Shikamaru took back guard followed by Asuma and Yugao, while Kakashi walked behind his team next to Tazuna. So Sai, what exactly happened in the forest? Kakashi asked, noticing the shiver that pale boy gave. I should have remembered not to insult the son of Konoha's Genjutsu mistress, that damn mask. Sai shivered as he explained, making Sakura and Tazuna shiver, remembering the slight. Maybe next time you'll think before you insult someone. Naruto said, making Kakashi sigh. He had to stop Sasuke from pummeling Sai the last time he insulted someone. Damn, Naruto can be scary when he's mad. Ino said to Temari, who nodded. Asuma held his hand out to Yugao, who groaned and slapped some coins into her fellow Jonin's hand. Damn that sigh, if it had just been Sakura, Yugao said. Was I just part of a bet? Naruto asked, looking behind. More like who would be the first of Team 7 to get your Oni mask no jutsu launched at them. Asuma explained. Oh alright. Naruto said as he faced front again and continued to walk. They were barely past Konoha's wall when Naruto noticed a puddle on the ground that's just weak. Naruto though as he placed his hands behind his head. Team 7 missed the hand signs Naruto was making towards the three behind him and towards Choji, who nodded when he got the message. He looked behind to see the rest nod. Asuma and Yugao, having caught the signs, decided to let their students handle it, but if worse came to worse they would step in. Tazuna and Kakashi pasted the puddle when all hell broke loose as a pair of Nukenin from Kiri, hit and missed, sent a long chain with jagged edges at the pair, only for a cloud of dust to pick up and them to only hear the sound of metal against metal. When the dust cleared, Naruto and Shikamaru were standing, their swords holding the chain away from Kakashi and Tazuna. When they noticed a bundle of silk, both Nukenins were surprised to feel a sharp pain in their gauntlet-covered hands. They looked to see that their hands were now stumps because of Choji and Temari cutting off their hands. They backed away till they were back to back when a chain appeared and wrapped around them. The shock of losing their arms made them stay as they were wrapped up. Naruto and Shikamaru appeared and knocked both upside the head with the flat of their swords, rendering them unconscious. Tazuna was breathing deeply, trying to regain the breath he lost when his life was in danger. Sakura couldn't believe what she had just seen and was gasping as well. Sasuke looked impressed, as did Kakashi, Asuma and Yugao, while Sai kept up an emotionless mask. Nicely done Team 10. Asuma said as all but Ino either cleaned their weapons or sheathed them. These two are C almost B class missing ninja. I thought we were protecting from thugs and bandits. Naruto asked as he looked at Tazuna, who paled slightly. The demon brothers Gozu and Maizu of Kiri, rank high C low B class. Wanted for attempted coup with Zabuza Mamichi, the demon of the mist. Taijutsu low B, Kinjutsu low A, Jinjutsu D, most likely traveling with Zabuza Mamichi. If so, approach with caution, if not capture kill on sight. Shikamaru said. Kakashi pulled out a blue book this time and flipped through the pages word for word. Nicely done Shikamaru. What's that book, Kakashi-sensei? Sakura asked. This is the bingo book. It's full of criminals and missing ninja of Konoha as well as other countries. Getting into the book means you did something that was terrible to that country or they're scared of you. Naruto finished for his father, who nodded. How do you know that? Sasuke asked. The fourth has an entry in Iwa and Kumo's bingo books. Both say surrender or flee on sight. He's the only man to ever get that order at his age. Naruto explained. Yes, and now I believe our client has some explaining to do. Kakashi said, glaring at the man. Tazuna went on to explain about Geto and his actions against Wave Country. This is an A-rank mission, we should return and refile it. Kakashi said. Wait please, my country can't afford an A-rank mission. I used the last of the assets to buy materials in this mission. Tazuna said. Kakashi sighed and looked at Asuma and Yugao. It's your mission and your call. Kakashi said. I say we go. I can't stand the idea of an entire country under Geto's thumb. Yugao said. I'm with Yugao here. Asuma added, then he looked at the genin. It's troublesome, but I'm in. I'm with Shikamaru. Choji said. Count me in. Temari said, making Ino and Naruto nod. Let's keep going, I won't ever get stronger on those stupid D-ranked mission. Sasuke said, making everyone but Sai and Sakura glare at the overconfident genin. Sakura nodded, not wanting to disappoint her Sasuke-kun. Sai didn't say anything but nodded as well. Alright, we'll continue on. Naruto scowled ahead 10 yards. Hi sensei. Naruto said before he jumped out of sight while the rest walked around. At night when they made camp, Naruto created some shadow clones and placed them in random areas to keep a lookout while everyone relaxed. Temari leaned against Naruto as he started to read the tale of the incredible Gutsy Ninja, the only book by Jiraiya that the boy could stand. He paused in his reading to think the man who writes that smut wrote something like this. Somewhere a silver-haired man was peeking on a woman's bathhouse before sneezing loudly, alerting all the women towards his presence. Back with Naruto and Team 10, everyone was laying down for the night. Sakura noticed Temari walk into Naruto's tent, but before she could comment, Ino bopped her on the head. She's his fiancé, forehead, let it go. Sakura was about to argue her point when Kakashi spoke up. They've been sharing a bed since she came to live in Konoha, but neither of them are ready to go farther than just sleep. As he spoke, Kakashi's head never lifted from his smut. Does Kurenai know you still read that? Asuma asked. Kakashi smiled at his friend. She not only knows, she likes to reenact some things from it. Asuma lost the cigarette that was in his mouth while Yugao smiled at him. I never knew Nai-chan liked role-playing. Mainly on special occasions, say birthdays and our anniversary, which reminds me. Naruto. A week and 3 days. Naruto's voice came from the tent, but Kakashi sighed in relief. Still got time then to get her something. Pakin will just have to make a delivery run that day. Thanks son. Yeah. A tired Naruto said before he and Temari snuggled together into a sleeping bag and fell asleep. As they slept, Ino and Choji were sitting nearby when Ino leaned onto Choji and started to gently fall asleep. Shikamaru looked and smiled for his friend who had a slight blush on his face. Shikamaru, Temari, and Naruto were the only ones that knew about Choji's secret crush on the Yamaka heiress. Ino didn't notice it, but everyone once in a while something like the scene in front of them made them think the feelings were mutual, but neither seemed to have the courage to go for it. Shikamaru leaned back against a log and looked up at the night sky and enjoyed the stars before he yawned and walked into his tent for the night. Morning came quickly, a little too quick for some. Shikamaru, anything to report? Asuma asked Naruto as he, Naruto, cooked breakfast. It was quiet all night. The only time any one of the clones reacted was when they caught breakfast. Naruto said, pointing to a small boar cooking on a makeshift spit. Asuma nodded as he walked away to the small stream to gather some water. As soon as breakfast was ready, everyone gathered around the fire and ate the boar that Naruto had cooked to perfection. Naruto, when I build my restaurant chain, want to become my head chef? Choji asked as he cleaned off the grease from the boar. I think about it as my retirement plan. Naruto said with an eye smile, making Team 10 and their sensei laugh. I'd almost forgotten how good your barbecue is, son. Kakashi said with an eye smile. It has been a while since we've had a family barbecue. Naruto said as they finished eating. After wrapping up the leftovers, the Konoha Ninja Plus client continued on their way to Wave Country. 3 days later they reached an incomplete bridge where a man stood on the river waiting. Tazuna, we were beginning to fear the worst. I'm alright, that's to my protectors here, well most of them anyway, those 3 over there were useless. Tazuna said, pointing at Team 7 who glared at him. Anyway, how are we? In Shikacho you got the west. Temari and I will take east. Asuma sensei, Yuga sensei, and Team 7 stick with the client. Rendezvous on the shore. Sounds like a plan to me. Kakashi said as he walked onto the boat. Naruto nodded, then nodded towards his teammates who nodded back before the group started out. Sakura, Sasuke, and Sai as well as Tazuna were surprised when the group started to run on the water to get to the other side before they vanished in the mist. Is it safe for them to run ahead like that? Tazuna asked. I trust Naruto and his team with my life. Naruto is a natural-born leader, Shikamaru is a trained strategist, Ino and Temari are very strong women that are the great support holding them together, and Choji is the guardian of the team. They'll be fine. Asuma said, lighting a cigarette. Not to mention they proved they can handle themselves against the demon brothers. Yuga said from her spot on the boat. There's still just a bunch of before Sasuke could finish he felt something push him out of the boat and fall into the water. Asuma and Yuga looked to see Kakashi with one hand behind his head while the other held his book. The hot head needed to cool off. Kakashi said, not looking up from his book. Meanwhile Sakura looked back worried about her Sasuke-kun but didn't do anything to help him. Asuma laughed a little but busted a gut when a line of ninja wire with a hook on the end came out of the mist and latched onto Sasuke's clothing and started to reel him in like a fish. Come on Choji, reel in that sucker. Came Naruto's voice over the mist, making Asuma laugh harder. Holding his side, Yuga was smirking, fighting her laugh. Kakashi wasn't far behind. He's fighting me, Captain. Choji said that was too much for Yuga, who started laughing with Asuma holding her side. If it all you got, man. You've almost landed, the terrible beastie. Naruto said. Now both senseis were sure they had busted a gut with their laughter, while Kakashi finally joined in the laughter. Tazuna was pounding the boat while he laughed, Sakura was glaring at everyone that was laughing, Sai just ignored everyone and worked on a drawing. When they reached land, a wet rat-looking Sasuke was glaring at a still laughing Choji and Naruto. I don't know Choji, you might want to throw it back, it looks poisonous. Naruto said, everyone once in a while gasping for breath. Naruto, my ribs. Choji begged as he laughed harder only to freeze as Naruto jumped up and threw a kunai at a bunch of bushes. Instantly all of Team 10 was weapons hot and waiting. Kakashi took out a kunai and waited while Team 7 followed his example. Azuna looked around him waiting for something bad to happen when a white rabbit came out of the bushes. Team 7's Genin and Tazuna sighed in relief while everyone else didn't relax. Naruto, Baka, what's the deal? Naruto, shut the hell up. It's the wrong season for a rabbit to be naturally white. Naruto hissed. So what? Sakura yelled. That means it's a domestic pet and was used for a substitution. Sai said, reaching for the tanto on his back, slowly drawing the blade. The group waited until they heard a sound in the air. Get down. Naruto and Kakashi called out, dragging those near them onto the ground, avoiding a large projectile that flew over their heads. They looked up to see a man with an open vest, cameo pants, a Kiri headband and a wrappings mask around his mouth. Well. What do we have here? So this is the reason why Gozu and Maizu never returned. The man growled. Naruto slowly stood at the same time as his father's Abusa Mamichi. Class A missing ninja of Kiri after a failed coup with the Demon Brothers. A master of the silent killing technique. Kakashi said. Kakashi of the Sharingan, aka Kakashi the copy ninja. Class A Jonin of Konoha said to have copied over 1000 jutsu with that eye of yours. However, who is the young pup standing with you looking like a miniature version of you? Minus the hair and eyes, of course. Naruto, I know Tucson. Team 10 circle formation. Naruto said, making the rest of the genin of his team circle around the client, all in defensive formations. Asuma and Yugao stood at Kakashi's side. Team 7 diamond formation. Kakashi commanded, making the group jump and surround Tazuna closer than Team 10 was. Tucson, so Kakashi, you brought your young son with you? How sad you and his mother will be when I rip him away from you. Zabuza taunted, making Kakashi freeze, and Naruto smiled behind his mask. He's in trouble now. Naruto whispered as Kakashi raised his hand and grabbed his headband and lifted it, revealing a red eye with 2 black comma marks. Over my cold dead body. Kakashi said in a dangerous voice as Kai, raising Zabuza, raised a non-existent eyebrow. So that is the Sharingan. I feel honored that you are showing it to me, the sight no man ever sees twice. Asuma, don't even think about it, Kakashi. That's my student and godson he just threatened. Asuma said, gripping his trench knives tighter. So be it. I'll go high. Right. Asuma said before the 3 warriors vanished from sight. The genin watched in amazement as Asuma and Kakashi battled with Zabuza kunai and trench knife against a Zanpakuto. Every time it seemed that they had delivered a killing blow to Zabuza, he dissolved into water. Water clones. Temari said when she caught sight of this. Eventually Zabuza was able to get away from Kakashi and Asuma before making a single-hand Sai hidden mist jutsu. He called out before the entire area was surrounded in mist. So many places to choose to attack, all ending in death, but whom and where, the question is. Zabuza's voice came from the mist. Kai filled the air, making Tazuna, Sasuke and Sakura all gasp for breath and even start to slightly panic. Is this what it feels like when jonin meet? Sasuke thought, it's too much, I can't take it, Sasuke thought as he slightly lifted his kunai. Sasuke. Naruto called out, making the boy freeze and look at his fellow genin. He won't get by us. Nor will Tucson allow anything to happen to us. Take a deep breath and calm down. Sasuke took a few deep breaths and nodded at his fellow genin. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Zabuza said as he appeared inside Team 7's diamond formation, about to cut down the client when the sound of metal striking metal filled the air. Zabuza was surprised to see Naruto in front of the group holding back the Zanpakuto with his fang-shaped long sword in a reverse grip. Like I said, you have to get by my team first. Naruto said, glaring at Zabuza. Temari now. Naruto called out. Wind style. Grand breakthrough. Temari's voice called out, followed by a large burst of wind clearing the area, making Zabuza look to see a katana around his neck and Jan's sword pointed at his heart. I'm impressed. Zabuza said till he turned to water and fell to the ground. Shit, another clone. Naruto cursed as they looked around until he heard something, making him turn to his both Asuma and Kakashi in water prison domes. Zabuza had used the distraction to capture the 2 jonin off guard, now hand over the bridge builder or. Naruto and Choji jumped forward, making hand signs, fire style. Fireball jutsu. Wind style. Drilling air bullet. Both young men called out, sending the 2 elemental jutsu after the silent killer who had to let the prisons go in order to escape the combination jutsu. Kakashi and Asuma avoided the attack by falling into the water before raising up and looking at one another before shrugging and getting back onto shore. Kakashi found Zabuza first and saw him making hand signs, which he quickly copied thanks to his eye water style. Water dragon jutsu. 2 voices called out, making 2 fully functioned dragons appear and charge one another, cancelling each other out. Zabuza was surprised even more so that when he made a move, Kakashi copied him perfectly. Nothing more than a trained monkey. He thought until Kakashi started to finish signs before he did, then he thought it was a trick of the eye when a water clone appeared behind Kakashi but looked like Zabuza. Can you see the future, Kakashi? Zabuza asked in a panicked voice. Water style. Great waterfall jutsu. Kakashi called out, making a giant wave appear behind him and slam into Zabuza until Zabuza was pinned against a tree, holding him against it. I see your death in your future, Zabuza. Kakashi called out as he was about to charge and finish off a Nukenin until a pair of Senbon needles appeared in the man's neck, making him slump forward, and Kakashi paused as he looked up to see a young-looking individual wearing a white mask with red strips. Thank you for weakening him for me. Kakashi looked at the ninja before walking up to Zabuza and placed 2 fingers against the man's throat, checking for a pulse. He's all yours, Hunter-san, and you're welcome. The hunter ninja appeared on the ground and grabbed Zabuza before vanishing, making Yugao, Kakashi, Asuma, and the rest of Team 10 raise their eyebrows in question. Kakashi recovered his eye. All right, let's. Kakashi didn't finish as he started to pitch forward, only to be caught by his son. You overdid it, Tucson. So it would seem, Kakashi said as Naruto lifted the man onto his back. Temari appeared behind to better set Kakashi on Naruto to make the trip easier for the pair. Sasuke Sai, take point. Ino Choji side guard, I'll stick in the middle with Tazuna. Temari Shikamaru back guard. Hi. What about me? Baruno, don't get in anyone's way. Naruto said as the genin followed his orders, and begrudgingly Sasuke and Sakura, the rest without hesitation. Asuma and Yugao joined Temari and Shikamaru at the back to keep an eye on everything. They arrived at a shabby-looking house that Tazuna opened. "Tsunami Inari, I'm home," Tazuna called out. A good-looking woman with long black hair and pale skin appeared from the kitchen who breathed a sigh of relief when she saw her father. Meanwhile, a young boy with a sour look and a fishing hat barely glanced at them before he looked away. "Do you have a place where I can set Tucson down?" Naruto asked once he was in the door. Tsunami nodded to lead him into a room upstairs where Temari set down one of their sleeping bags before helping Naruto set Kakashi on the ground. Kakashi looked up at his son with a smile. "You did a good job out there today, son." "Thank you Tucson, but we still have problems." "What do you mean? That sword guy is dead, isn't he?" Tazuna asked from the doorway. "Well, the one that collected him was dressed like a hunter ninja. Something wasn't right," Naruto said. "Hunter ninja? Ninja bounty hunter? They go around and kill missing ninja, decapitating their captors and presenting their heads to the country, offering the biggest bounty. However, I've never heard of one taking its prey away from sight before completing their usual routine," Asuma answered Sakura. "Right, plus while senbon needles are great for medical means, it's not exactly a conventional weapon for Hunter Nin," Yugao added, making Kakashi and Team 10 nod. "Then it's safe to assume that Hunter Nin and Zabuza were working together," Shikamaru said. "Which also means that Zabuza was just in a dead-like state which he'll recover from and his injuries in about a week with medical attention, maybe 2 without," Ino added. "So we've got a week before we meet him again. Which is about the time Kakashi Senpai will recover from his chakra exhaustion," Yugao said. "Alright then. Asuma, I'd like you and Temari to help Team 7 with some chakra control. Tree walking mainly. You haven't done that yet." Naruto deadpanned, making Kakashi look up at him. "It's slow going when I keep getting lost on the road of life," Kakashi explained, making everyone's sweat drop. "Boy," Naruto said, shaking his head. "Anyway. Well, that's taking place. Yugao and the rest of Team 10 will watch over Tazuna as he finishes the bridge. I'll take over for Asuma as soon as I can stand on a pair of crutches." "Sounds like a good idea, and after Team 7 has got that down, we can swap guard days so we can train as well," Naruto said. That night after dinner, Temari was being held tightly by Naruto at a request. "Tima-chan, what's wrong?" Naruto asked. "Naru-kun, I'm worried about everything that might happen after Zabuza returns," Temari said. "We could have gotten hurt or killed today, no matter how well we handled the situation." Naruto nodded and pulled her in closer. "I'm not going to let anything happen to you, Temari. I promise I will do everything to keep you safe. I love you too much not to," Naruto said. Temari's eyes widened slightly before she smiled brightly. While she knew Naruto loved her, he hadn't ever said the words before. "I love you, Naru-kun," Temari said, looking into his eyes. Naruto smiled. "I love you too, my desert Haim," he said, making her smile again before she pulled down his mask and delivered a bruising kiss, one that left both recipients breathless before it ended. Naruto smiled and let her as she laid her head on his chest, listening to her personal lullaby. Morning found Temari watching 3 students try and master tree walking. Sakura had been the first to climb the tree, but Asuma made her keep going again and again to build her reserves since they were so pitiful. While Naruto, Yugao, Choji, and Shikamaru guarded Tazuna and his workers or helped out every once in a while, Naruto especially with his clones. Every night they would gather back at Tazuna's house and enjoy a meal and talk before going to sleep. After Team 7 mastered tree walking, the group joined Team 10 for their water walking exercises, or tried to anyway. They still had a ways to go. One night they were introduced to Kakashi's dog Summons, or one of them anyway. "Pakin, I need you to run an errand for me," Kakashi said, handing him a scroll. "Please take this to Kurenai and let her know I said happy anniversary." Pakin nodded before taking the scroll in his mouth and vanishing in a puff of smoke. He returned later with a different scroll and a message tied to it: "Happy anniversary and thank you for the flowers, they're beautiful." There was an imprint of a pair of red lipstick-covered lips on the end. Kakashi smiled before unrolling the scroll and unsealing a brand new Icha Icha book, making Kakashi cry in tears. "I've got the greatest wife in the world, it's even autographed," he cried out, holding the book closed before noticing a second note. "There is a really good scene on page 125, we'll test out when you get home." Kakashi paused before flipping through the book trying to find the scene. Naruto shook his head as Temari gently patted his head, trying not to laugh at the look on his face when Kakashi started to chuckle like a pervert. "Tusan. Remember your son is in the room right now," Naruto called out, making Kakashi look up. "Whoops. Sorry son," Kakashi said as he put the book away. "I'll read it later." "Thank you," Naruto said, sighing in relief. "Naruto, why? Every time he reads those books he imagines my mother is the main female character," Naruto explained. "Wow, she must be quite the looker," Azuna started to say before he felt a familiar dark aura hit the air. He looked to see Naruto's fox monster mask in full effect. Only this time the mask had morphed to make it look like the mouth was open, revealing a lot of sharp-looking teeth. "What were you about to say, Tazuna-san?" Naruto asked, making Tazuna shiver in fright. "Nothing." The bridge builder squeaked out in a very small voice. Naruto just met before the mask vanish. Everyone breathed easier after that. He's scary when he's mad. Sakura, Ino, Tazuna, and Tsunami thought as Naruto was pulled into Temari's arms and allowed to rest his face in the crook of her neck. So that's why he never stops reading those damn books. Yugao thought as she looked at the Icha book. Although I'm sure Kurenai won't let Naruto within 10 feet of one of that pervert's books. Yugao thought. Meanwhile in another part of the elemental nation, a man in a brothel sneezed suddenly but shrugged it off. At night as they ate dinner everyone was gathered and eating before Inari spoke up. Why? Everyone looked at him in surprise since this was the first time any of them heard him speak. Why what? Naruto asked. Why are you trying so hard? It won't matter anyway, no one can defeat Gato. Doesn't mean we're not going to try. Just because you gave up doesn't mean we have. Naruto answered taking another bite of his meal. You don't know anything about pain or loss. None of you do. Inari yelled out as soon as the words were past his lips, the room's temperature plummeted. Who did you lose? Naruto asked in a low voice. Why my stepfather? I'm guessing he died standing up to Gato. Yes. Have you ever seen a comrade, someone you considered a brother, die slowly while he was crushed by a rocks? Naruto asked. And no. Have you been taken away from all you know because of a bunch of old buzzards forced you to? And no. Did you grow up knowing that every time your Tusan or Kasan walked out the door, it could be the last? Naruto asked. And no. The last one was towards every single member of those whose parents wear this headband. Naruto said tapping his. The first one was my Tusan who did have to watch as his brother, his teammate, his comrade died after being buried in a rock slide. The second was my desert Haim here. Well, I wouldn't trade her love for the world thanks to the counsels of both Konoha and Suna. She was taken from her family, her home, from all she knew. Naruto glared at Inari. Not all of us have the luxury of turning coward every time something bad happens in life. So next time you want to open your mouth, remember there is always someone somewhere worse off than you. Naruto ended with a yell before standing up. I've lost my appetite. He said leaving the house. Azuna looked at Kakashi. Did you really lose a teammate like he said? Obito Uchiha was his name, and yes. That was also the same day I got this eye. Kakashi pointed towards his covered eye. I had lost mine and he gave me his as his final act on this earth. Shikamaru looked at a still surprised Inari. He's right, you know. We live our lives knowing that every time we go through the door and leave our village, it could very well be for the last time. No child can understand until after they become genin. The shadow user said before he stood up and followed Naruto out. Choji dropped his bowl on the table and followed Temari and Ino not far behind. Azuna looked at the genin as they left. They are the only ones that can help Naruto calm down right now. His team and his mother are the only ones ever able to calm him down when he's angry, at least in their own way. Mine usually involves hitting something. Kakashi said. He's a very passionate young man, isn't he? Tsunami asked, making the three jonin smile. He's like his mother when it comes to certain things. Kurenai normally keeps things bottled up unless she feels very strongly about whatever is going on. Naruto is much the same, whereas Kayaki, my daughter, tries to bury it deep down just like I do. Does your wife and daughter wear mask as well? Does Kayaki? It's a Haddock tradition to only allow family and future Haddocks to see what's underneath our mask. Right now Kurenai, Kayaki, and Temari are the only people who had any idea what Naruto and I look like under them. Outside, Naruto was looking up at the sky trying to let what Inari said go, but it was hard. Brad had been pressing his buttons the entire time he and the rest of the Konohinin arrived. Well, correct, you shouldn't have yelled at the brat. Temari's voice said, making him lean his head back to see her walk over with the rest of Team 10 and sit down joining him. I know, but the kid just irks me. Why turn into a sniveling coward instead of fight against the one who took someone so precious from you? Not all of us have your courage, Naruto. Shikamaru said as he laid down on Naruto left while Temari took the right. Choji and Ino nearby, their heads near his. If it was any one of us, we know we'd want some kind of justice for the crimes, but that boy has been living in fear almost all his life, whereas we have not. Then I guess we'll just have to get the village their justice by capturing Gato for them. Let them deal with him after we're done. It would help them get over what he has done to them. Ino said. The group just laid there looking at the sky one by one falling asleep. Temari snuggled into Naruto's side while he held her, so she was warm. Ino subconsciously snuggled into Choji, who held her while he slept, neither aware that this was going on, and Shikamaru fell asleep, not caring about the fact he didn't have a girl to lay with him, not caring at all. Morning found Team 10 still lying out in the field where Team 7 had been tree climbing. A young woman wearing a pink kimono walked into the field, seeing the group asleep. So these are the genins Abusa said to be mindful of. Haku thought as she reached for a few senbon needles in her hand and approached them. Haku approached the group, needles in her hand, before pausing and sighing before returning the needles to her pouch. They are not my enemy yet. She thought as she continued until a kunai pasted her, making her freeze. Naruto sat up, his arm raised. I didn't even see him throw that kunai. Haku thought. Naruto relaxed slightly before gently shaking Temari, who woke up and rubbed the sleep from her eyes. He then kicked Shikamaru, who groaned but woke up. Toji and Ino woke up at the sound of Shikamaru groaning, neither giving much thought to their current sleeping arrangement, before they stood up and stretched. They all looked to see a young girl around their age frozen in fright. Sorry about that. Instinct. Naruto explained as he stood and stretched. It's alright, I was the one that surprised you. Haku said, acting like she was calming down from her fright before she blushed and looked away. Confused, Naruto turned to see what made her blush before he saw Shikamaru looking at her. He had been struck stupid at the sight of the girl and was staring at her intently. Shika, you'll catch flies like that. Ino said, waking Shikamaru up and making him turn his face, trying to hide his blush. My name is Naruto, this is my fiancée Temari, our teammates Ino, Choji, and Shikamaru. What's your name? Naruto asked, remembering his manners. Hello, my name is Haku. The now introduced Haku said to Team 10, what were you doing out here so early? Haku asked. It was an innocent question. I came out here to calm down last night and my team joined me in some stargazing before we all just fell asleep. Naruto said, sheepishly scratching the back of his head. At Izuna's house, Kakashi was trying to read his new book, but everyone could tell he wasn't really reading it. He never turned the page. Asuma found it a little funny, but knew better than to call Kakashi on this fact. Is he alright? Tsunami asked he, battling with his inner father. He worried about the fact Naruto was out all night and still hasn't returned. He's trying to deciding whether to just sit here and wait for him to return or go looking for him. Asuma explained with a smile on his face. I know he can take care of himself, but there's never been a night when he wasn't home or nearby. Yugao finished, making the sliver-haired shinobi nod. At least it was you that tagged along on this mission. Image, what would have happened if Kurenai was here? Asuma said before all three jonin felt a shiver up their spines. Would it have been that bad? Let me put it this way. I love my red-eyed Haim, but the words overprotective mother were defined based around her. Kakashi said. Meanwhile, Kurenai was making breakfast when she sneezed suddenly, probably Naruto or Kakashi. I wish they were home. Kurenai thought as she finished the meal for her and her daughter. Back with Team 10, the genin were now sitting with Haku laughing and passing the time before Ino noticed the herbs in Haku's basket. Are you collecting healing herbs? Ino asked. Yes. A friend of mine hurt himself recently and I was collecting herbs to help his recovery. Ino nodded before standing and helped Haku collect the herbs. Since she knew what to look for once her basket was filled, Haku acted as if she just noticed the headbands. Are you all shinobi in Kunoichi? That's right. Naruto said before Haku looked at him. Then you must have someone very precious you fight to protect. Sure do. There's my family, my friends, and most importantly my dessert Haim right here. Naruto said before he kissed Temari's cheek, making her blush. Haku smiled. That's good. I believe true strength comes from the drive to protect those that are precious to you. I agree. Naruto said as he pulled Temari in close to his side, his arm around her waist. Temari laid her head on his shoulder while he did this with a smile on her face. Haku smiled at the group before she picked up her basket and walked away. It was good meeting you all. And by the way, we know you're a girl, Haku, but that you need to keep that a secret. You don't need to worry about us telling anyone. Shikamaru said, making Haku blink before she smiled at him and walked up to him before kissing his cheek. Thank you. She said as she left. Alright team, let's head back before Toussaint comes looking and knocks me into next week. Naruto said, making Choji laugh as they all headed back. Naruto turned out to be half right. As soon as they were through the door, Kakashi bopped him on the head hard enough to create a large bump, but they all knew it was because he had been worried about his son. Naruto chuckled sheepishly before apologizing to Kakashi, who nodded and finally actually read his book, letting everyone know he was just fine. Asuma and Yugao figured the strong physical attack was enough of a punishment for Naruto, and they didn't bother with the rest of their genin. So we met the fake hunter today. Shikamaru said once Kakashi had finished, making all three jonin look at them in surprise. Her name is Haku, however she tried to pass herself off as a civilian this morning as she gathered herbs to help Abuse's healing. Naruto said, making Ino, Temari and Choji look at the two of them in surprise. Wait, I forgot who I'm talking to. Ino said, making Shikamaru and Naruto laugh. How can you be sure? Yugao asked. She has the same height, build, and voice as the hunter. Shikamaru explained. And the fact that she was defiantly a she instead of a feminine male. Temari asked. She's developing early. Shika said with a shrug, making the females of their team grow tick marks, while Temari looked at Naruto. Naru-kun, how did you know? Temari asked in a sweet voice, making her own Oni mask no jutsu appear, making every man but Naruto shiver. Naruto tapped the side of his nose. 2 cents training to enhance my sense of smell. Haku's scent was way too feminine to be anything other than a girl. And nice try on Kachan's jutsu. Naruto said while said mask vanish. Temari kissed her fiancé and smiling in the knowledge that he hadn't been ogling another girl. Kakashi then looked at Naruto before sighing. Naruto, the time has come for you to learn your lightning affinity. Naruto looked at his father in surprise before nodding and understanding the two Haddocks left quietly. Is now really the time to learn secondary affinities? Temari asked Asuma, who shrugged. In a section surrounded by trees, Kakashi looked at Naruto before he began. The channel lightning chakra you first have to draw from the electricity already in your body. Kakashi spent that day explaining and teaching like always. Naruto caught on quick and did his damnedest to learn. Alright Naruto, here are 3 scrolls on lightning jutsu. The first is called Paralyzing Array. It channels lightning through water or the ground to affect your enemy and temporarily make the signals from the brain to the body to misfire. The second is a defense jutsu called Lightning Wall. It creates a small dome around your body to protect it from attacks, especially earth-based ones. And the third, well, I'm sure you recognize it. Kakashi said with an eye smile as Naruto opened the scroll. Two-san, this is a Chidori, yes. These last few days have shown me that you are ready to use such a technique to protect your team rather than just as a means to kill your enemies. Besides, who did you think I would teach this to, Sasuke? Kakashi said with a laugh, making Naruto join him. Now, like Asuma showed you to channel wind through your sword and trench knives, you can do the same with lightning. However, instead of focusing on cutting, focus on stabbing. Like the Rikari? Naruto asked. Correct. Now I need to get back to Team 7. I need to teach them something if they're going to be any help whatsoever. Kakashi said before walking away, leaving Naruto to his training. While this was happening, Yugao had taken Ino and Temari to work on learning some water jutsu, while Asuma decided to teach both Shikamaru and Choji some advanced fire jutsu. The week had come and gone, which found teams 10 and 7 leaving Tazuna's house with said man between them. Naruto looked up and saw 3 clones that he had left behind, the lead of which nodded in recognition before hiding. They arrived to find the bridge shrouded in mist. Naruto tensed while sniffing the air. Haku is near, meaning Team 10 weapons out, prepare for battle. Asuma said as he pulled out his trench knives. Naruto followed his example and pulled his knives out as well, while everyone else grabbed their weapons and or kunai to prepare. This time they all knew it wouldn't end until Zabuza was dead or captured, and the same went for Haku. Once they were on the bridge, they saw the bodies of Tazuna's workers. Most were dead, but a few were just wounded. Definitely Zabuza's work. Kakashi said before they heard a laugh in the air. Why, thank you, Kakashi. Zabuza's frame was seen in the mist. Next to him was Haku, who was once again wearing her hunter ninja outfit, mask included. I am happy that you brought the brats again, especially your own boy. He's a rather interesting young man, might just make the bingo book before his 15th birthday. Zabuza said. Kakashi I smiled. Well, I did train him since he was 4 years old. Now Zabuza was even more impressed. No wonder he was fast enough to block my blade. Zabuza said with a slight laugh before he made a hand sign, making a group of water clones appear. Team 10 and the Jonin took care of them before they could actually become a problem. Looks like you've got rivals in speed, Haku. Yes, Zabuza-sama. Team 7 protect Azuna. Leave Zabuza to the Jonin. Naruto, you and Team 10 have got the hunter ninja. Hi Kakashi Two-san. Team 7 went into a familiar pattern around Tazuna while Team 10 readied for the fight. Haku charged at a speed most could barely follow, at least until Naruto blocked her attack and started a taijutsu battle with her using his knives, mainly to block her using her senbon needles against him. Temari appeared with her fans open, helping Naruto. The two worked in perfect sync with one another, making Zabuza raise a non-existent eyebrow. Who's the blonde? Zabuza asked the Jonin. My son's fiancé and my future daughter-in-law. Kakashi said with pride. Zabuza shrugged before taking his blade off his back. Kakashi noticed and lifted his headband, again revealing his Sharingan. I think I'm the only enemy to ever see that eye a second time. Indeed, but there won't be a third. After all, I still remember that threat you made to kill my son. Naruto and Temari were fighting Haku, who was impressed by how well the two were working together, making it almost impossible for her to use her ice jutsu. Until she jumped away from the two, then having to dodge again as a fire jutsu appeared out of nowhere, making her look to see Shikamaru with his finger near his mouth. As soon as she landed, she was moving again as a water jutsu came at her courtesy of Ino. She noticed Choji slapping his hands together. Expansion jutsu. He called out, making his entire body balloon before he tucked in his arms, legs and head human boulder. He called out as he started spinning towards her rapidly, making her jump over him before Naruto gave her a roundhouse kick to the head, sending her flying till she hit the ground. Nice work on that water whip, Ino. Naruto called out. And Shika, when did you learn the fireball jutsu? Temari added as she joined her fiancé near the team. Choji reappeared next to them as Haku stood up, shaking her head. You're stronger than I thought. Just got a really good team of people to help when I need them. Naruto said. Then it's time to cut down the numbers. Haku said, rapidly going through hand signs, making water rays around her before they turned into eye needles. Eye style. 1,000 needles of death. The needles flew at the team scatter. Naruto ordered before everyone jumped apart, barely avoiding the needles. Naruto and Temari were alone in a section of the bridge while the others were together. Time to end this fight. Eye style. Demonic ice mirrors. Haku called out, making all the water near the two turn to ice and rise into the air, shaping until they were surrounded by a dome of ice mirrors. While this was happening, Kakashi looked at the dome. What jutsu is this? Surprised Kakashi. This is Haku's greatest technique as the last of the ice users of Kiri. It's quite deadly. The bloodline. Kakashi cursed, making to move to help only to jump back from Zabuza's Zanpakuto. Sorry Kakashi, but I can't let you leave this fight. Zabuza said before he made a sigh, thickening the mist, almost making it impossible for the Jonin to see in front of their eyes. Asuma made ready to use Temari's tactic to clear the mist when he felt his senses go off, making him jump out of the way of a slash from his Zanpakuto. So you're the one that taught them to clear my mist? Well, I can't have you destroy my way of defeating the Sharingan. Zabuza said as he vanished again. All of a sudden two voices were crying out in pain, making the Jonin look towards the dome. Naruto, Temari. Kakashi called out. Worry about the fight in front of you. Zabuza called out, making to slash Kakashi, who blocked it with a kunai. Naruto and Temari looked around the dome, seeing every single mirror had an image of Haku. I had hoped that I wouldn't have to kill the two of you, but you've left me no other choice. Haku's voice said as each image reached into the pouch on their hips, pulling out senbon needles before throwing them in an endless assault, making Naruto and Temari cry out in pain as they were stabbed by the needles. Outside the dome, the Inshikacho trio heard the screams. Naruto. Temari. We've got to do something. Shikamaru. Choji called out, making the pineapple-haired shadow user nod and go into his thinking pose. Alright, when he does that he can create any strategy to save those two. Ino thought as the cries of pain died down. Choji, try your hottest fireball for me, I need to see something. Shikamaru said. Choji flew through the hand signs fire style. Grand fireball jutsu. Choji called out, taking a deep breath and shooting a larger-than-life fireball at the mirror in front of him. They all watched as it started to melt, and once Choji was done, they caught sight of a slightly pinned cushion. Naruto and Temari, who were still on their feet before the mirror reformed. Chakra enhanced and she can remake them instantly if need be. Shikamaru said before he closed his eyes in though. When they saw the fireball, Team 7, the Jonin and Zabuza were surprised. Looks like the rest of the team is trying to help Naruto and Temari. Asuma said with a smile, and Kakashi breathed easier with Shikamaru, Ino, and Choji on the case. I can focus here, Kakashi thought as they continued the silent battle against Zabuza. Still able to stand, huh? Well, we'll just have to fix that. Aku said as another barrage of needles came down. Naruto went through some hand signs. Temari, Haim, stay close. Naruto called out. Temari stood next to him. Lightning style. Lightning wall. Naruto called out, making a bright electric wave appear around the two, blocking most of the needles, not all mind you, but enough to where it didn't hurt as much as the first barrage. Shikamaru smiled. Nicely done Naruto, try and buy me a little more time and I'll get you and Temari out of there. He thought. Aku was impressed. Interesting lightning and wind affinities, but that won't help you now. No. Then how about this? Water style. Water dragon jutsu. Temari called out, making the water on the ground from near them form into a familiar jutsu and rush at the mirrors, giving Haku wasn't worried until she heard Naruto cry out. Lightning style. Paralyzing array. Naruto called out, channeling the lightning through Temari's water dragon. Combination jutsu. Paralyzing dragon. Naruto and Temari called out as the lightning-enhanced dragon hit the mirrors and they could hear Haku cry out in pain from the effects. Zabuza paused and looked towards the dome when he heard Haku cry out in pain. Seems your apprentice is still having trouble, Zabuza. Kakashi taunted. Way to go Naruto and Temari. Ino cried out as she jumped up and down. Haku fell out of a mirror, twitching as lightning still ran through her body. As she forced herself onto her feet, she glared at the two. Ouch. She growled before jumping back into the mirrors. Now you've gone and made me mad. Haku said as the water from the jutsu turned into needles, as well as Haku lifting her metal ones. She forced the two apart, not giving Naruto the chance to use his lightning wall jutsu again before Temari was hit in the knees with a few needles, making her fall back onto her backside. Now I will end this. Haku yelled, rushing at Temari. Temari closed her eyes, waiting for the end. When it didn't come, she opened her eyes to see Haku on the ground and Naruto standing in front of her protectively. Temari smiled until Naruto dropped down to his knees and fell back into her lap, making her see that he had been stabbed by multiple needles when trying to defend her. Naruto looked up at her and smiled before he started coughing. Temari lowered his mask, allowing blood to fall from his mouth. And then Naruto-kun. SHH, Team Haim. Naruto said in a shaky voice. Naru-kun. She cried out when his breathing grew faint. I'm sorry Team Haim, it looks like. No, don't talk, you're going to be just fine. Temari demanded more than told him. As his breath grew even fainter, he lifted his hand and wiped a tear from Temari's face. I love you Team Haim. He gasped out, I love you too Naru-kun. Temari said. She leaned forward and kissed Naruto. The kiss was passion-filled and loving, but she felt him stop suddenly. She tried to get him to kiss back. She tried and tried till she pulled away teary-eyed. Naruto's eyes were closed, but he had a look of complete peace over his face and no come back. Come back Naruto. Temari said, her tearing running freely. Naruto. What if Naruto bankrupts Konoha exams? Thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel and leave a like if you guys need the next part, comment down, and thanks for watching the video and see you guys in the next video.